A girl gets dragged under her bed, and later her mom finds a doll under there. It seems to breathe. A vintage doll in a bar keeps setting off motion. First a stool falls over, and then the doll itself shifts on camera. And a man opens a cabinet full of dolls after hearing it rattle, and one of them starts moving on its own, right after a creepy whisper says evil. These are haunted dolls caught on camera. This unsettling set of videos comes from a woman named Haley Moore. She has a collection of rather realistic looking dolls. Well, one night her daughter was playing in her room and the security camera caught this. So the lullaby the girl was just singing to herself starts playing out loud from somewhere. The girl gets out of bed to see what's going on. She looks under there and then this happens. Something starts to drag her underneath. Luckily, mom hears the screaming and comes in to get her. She posted the clip to TikTok and people had a lot of questions. A lot of them wanted Haley to film under the bed, so she posted this next video. So one of her dolls is laying under the bed. Not only was she not expecting it to be under there, but the thing moves, almost like it's letting out a breath. She later explained that the doll has no mechanical components, it's just a stuffed doll with plastic. TikToker My Name is Ricky Bobby's been having an issue with a creepy vintage doll. This video was shared back in June. He wrote in the description, "This was recorded on my bar's surveillance camera. No one was there." Bar stool just randomly falling over on its own is freaky enough, but this isn't the only time he's captured something odd with the doll on camera. So unfortunately, we don't see what made him grab the camera and start filming initially, but then this happens. Now, could this just be a case of gravity doing the work and the doll just kind of slightly shifting position? I mean, sure, but taking the bar stool falling over into account too, hey, does make you wonder. This video was uploaded to the YouTube channel World Paranormal. Bobby Bars said he was just hanging out watching a movie when he started to hear his cabinet door moving, as if something was pulling on it from the inside. He opens the cabinet, revealing a small doll collection inside. Then he starts talking to the dolls, which are supposedly haunted. Now, listen closely to the clips we're gonna play here. Can you hear a voice whisper evil as he opens the cabinet door? And then see if you can hear footsteps in this next clip. Eventually, Bobby decides to close the door, and that's when this happens. Keep your eye on the doll on the left with the curly red hair.
All right, I'm about to close the door.
And then it moves again.
Did you move the doll? Yo.
Yeah, I think I'd be keeping that cabinet door bolted shut from that point on. This video was posted to YouTube years ago. A mom had just got her daughter a new doll, and she was filming her playing with it. Keep your eyes on the other doll in the background, though.
Lovable.
One of the arms of the doll in the background raises up, followed by the candle in front of it rolling. So, not only does this doll apparently have the ability to move on its own, it also knows the Force. And that's actually kind of cool. I think I'd keep this doll. I just make sure to be very cautious not to piss it off. Would you ever agree to spend the night in this room? I'm gonna guess a lot of you clicked on this video because dolls kind of creep you out, so that answer is probably no, especially after seeing this. Did you catch that? Happens pretty fast, but notice how as the camera pans across a section of dolls, one of them lowers its arm. I'd be out of that room so fast, especially because I'd already be kind of uncomfortable in there in the first place. I don't even have a thing about dolls really, but I mean, there's just way too many of them in that room. Too much of one thing is always kind of freaky, right? Too many cats, too many monkeys. Monkeys? An odd choice, but anyway, imagine trying to sleep with all those faces surrounding you. Not to mention that some of these dolls look just a little too real for comfort. This is one of those mysterious early YouTube videos. I actually don't even know if it was originally uploaded to YouTube or if it comes from somewhere else. It's been around since at least 2009, and here we see a girl holding a doll, talking to her friend behind the camera. I'm not sure exactly where this was filmed, but some have said Mexico. Anyway, everything seems fine and dandy before this happens. Pretty relatable reaction, really. I mean, imagine holding a doll in your arms only to look over and see its beady little eyes staring into your soul when you know you had its face turned the other way. I'd throw it on the floor too, and then I'd set it on fire. Whether that happened or not is anyone's guess. There's virtually no background info on this video, but based on her reaction, I don't think she kept the thing. During a live morning broadcast in Honduras, journalist Carlos Molina had a pretty wild moment on air. While he and his co-host Pablo Zapata were reading through viewer messages, he freezes. His glass of water had slid across the table on its own, seemingly. He also mentioned that right before it happened, he'd felt this chill run down his spine. Carlos was pretty adamant that nobody on the crew was messing with him. He said, and this is his own words, "I felt something strange in my body. The action didn't just demonstrate itself in the glass, but in me as well. What I felt was a supernatural phenomenon, a chill throughout my body before the glass moved," end quote. The table was completely flat, no strings, no wires. I'm gonna play a couple clips from this news coverage in Jamaica. What's your immediate reaction?
Yeah.
Back in 2010, a Jamaican news station ran a story on a boy who said he was being haunted by a type of spirit known as a duppy. The news crew managed to capture those two separate weird moments on camera, but this had supposedly been going on for a while. The boy and his family believed that he was being targeted by this dark entity, constantly tugging at him. When he got pulled back that second time, watch his legs. One of them is up in the air as he's moving backward, and then his mom rushes over and grabs him, and they do this spinny, kind of like helicopter motion. Not impossible to fake, obviously, but it is a neat detail. This clip comes from a live broadcast of London Tonight. A strange, dark, shadowy shape can be seen floating by the road behind the reporter. It has a very vague shape, but almost looks like it could be a person crossing the road. Now, on its own, this probably wouldn't be a big deal, but it's the circumstances surrounding it that really got this clip so much attention, and it has a lot of attention, millions and millions of views. The reporter was covering a deadly car accident that had taken place on this stretch of road not long before, so viewers started to wonder if this mysterious shape was some sort of ghostly presence, possibly the spirit of one of the victims of the accident, trying to leave the scene of the crash. Back in 2013, West News in Daytona Beach, Florida covered a story about the historic Plaza Resort and Spa. Strange stuff had been going on there. Some of the eerie activity was caught on security cameras. They spoke to the hotel security chief at the time, who said he was watching the security monitors like usual one night when he caught something strange in the bar.
An apparition moving about, changing sizes, and when a guard came down to check, others say the ghostly presence seemed to hide.
The guard couldn't see what the rest of the staff spotted on the security camera, but he felt something.
The guy upstairs was telling him, "Go behind the bar, it's behind the bar, go behind." So he started to go behind the bar, and he said, "No way."
In 2019, 9 News Australia did a story on a pub called Tyler's Kiln. The owner, Alistair Collins, is pretty convinced his place is haunted, and he had a bunch of late-night security footage to back it up. Chairs sliding out from tables on their own, umbrellas randomly popping open when nobody was around, doors slamming shut. One of the news anchors actually tried to recreate the chair moving the way it did in the footage, and he couldn't replicate it.
But this skeptic still isn't convinced.
Have a go. See if we can. See if I can
Dragging
get a
it
ghost.
and try and make it smooth.
The ground was just too uneven to smoothly drag the chair like it was dragged in the CCTV footage, and rigging out some kind of string trick would have been really hard to hide on camera. They also looked into how the umbrella could have opened by itself, and basically concluded it'd be nearly impossible to do without someone ending up in the shot. The creepiest part of the whole story comes from an electrician who was doing renovations. He heard these small doors swinging near the kitchen and then loud footsteps going up the stairs. So he assumed it was the other guy in the building heading up, but then that guy came walking straight out of the kitchen right in front of him. So they went upstairs together to check it out. I mean, who was up there? Well, there was nobody. The entire top floor was empty. During a live weather broadcast in Argentina back in 2023, something unexpected happened. Matthias Bertolotti was mid-forecast, and the production cut to one of their outdoor cameras. A live feed pointed at a quiet boardwalk. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary at first glance, but then a viewer watching from home noticed something strange. Running across the grass was what appeared to be a human figure, except there was something very strange about it. The figure was not solid. It was semi-transparent, ghostly pale, and you can barely make out any legs. It's like you're looking at the top half of a person. And to top it off, the figure seems to vanish out of thin air. The production team replayed the clip after viewers began calling in about it. Both hosts were pretty shocked. They were adamant that there had been no tampering with the footage. The camera had been rolling live the entire time. This video was uploaded to the YouTube channel World Paranormal. Paranormal investigator Bobby Bars experienced some weird stuff with this doll. Throughout the video, there are some pretty eerie EVPs, which stands for electronic voice phenomena. Listen closely to this. No. Did you hear that whisper? What about the odd whimpering noise in this next clip?
Across the screen. Holy.
What about the doll? Well, this is the creepiest part.
What the
What do you all think of this one? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. This next clip was shared to YouTube by Jonathan's Other Adventures, who seems to have captured the infamous Robert the Doll move on his own. He said he captured the footage in 2008 while on a trip to Key West, Florida, where Robert the Doll is housed at the East Martello Museum. Watch Robert's foot after he pans the camera down. Now, that happens very fast and it's pretty subtle, so here it is slowed down a couple times. The foot does seem to subtly shift on its own. Now, for those of you not in the know, Robert the Doll is probably the most famous haunted doll aside from Annabelle. It once belonged to a boy named Robert Eugene Otto, who claimed the doll could move and talk. Neighbors said they saw it watching from windows, and Gene's parents often heard him screaming while Robert's voice responded. The doll was eventually locked away, but strange things kept happening. Furniture would move, giggles in the dark would be heard. Eventually, the doll ended up at the museum in Florida, where it sits behind glass, and visitors claim that bad luck will follow if they take his photo or video without asking permission. Some have even mailed apology letters to the museum begging the doll to forgive them. In 2017, a couple appeared on the British talk show This Morning with a doll they believed was possessed. And while they were being interviewed, the chair the doll was sitting on started rocking by itself multiple times. The couple explained they'd found the doll at an antique store, along with a few others, and bought them because they were cheap and might be worth reselling. But the moment they brought the dolls home, strange things started to happen. They kept the one that ended up on the show in their bedroom dresser, and one morning the husband got in the shower and suddenly felt a burning sensation on his leg, out of nowhere. After that, they put the doll in a plastic bin out in the shed, and a few days later, the wife opened the bin and noticed the doll's necklace had somehow come off, even though it had been tightly secured. That same night, she woke up around 2 a.m. and heard a whooshing sound pass by the bed, almost like clothes were rustling, but nothing was there. They ended up selling the thing on eBay soon after this episode aired. The Pascalita is a mannequin in a bridal shop window in Mexico. There is something very creepy and off-putting about this thing, mainly how lifelike it is. In fact, that's entirely it. And to the point where a lot of people think she might actually be a corpse. See, she first showed up in 1930, and right away people started noticing she looked exactly like the shop owner's daughter, who had just died from a black widow spider bite on her wedding day. People started whispering that it wasn't just a mannequin, that it was her body preserved and dressed in a wedding gown. Some would even say they'd see the thing move on its own. And the rumors aren't surprising. I mean, her skin looks almost too real. Her hands, oh yikes, the hands. Look at them, the tiny wrinkles, the fingernails. Why does a mannequin need to have hands with this much meticulous, lifelike detail? Some store visitors have said she moves slightly, and this just sends a shiver down my spine, but a few claim they've seen her dance in the window at night. And we're to start things off at number 10 with the Satanic Idol. This item was once housed at the Warren Occult Museum, and according to the Warrens, the idol is about as pleasant as it sounds. Now, regardless of your opinion on these two paranormal investigators, the tale behind this object is pretty entertaining. So, in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, in 1991, a hunter stumbles upon something, a mysterious idol, just chilling in the middle of the woods. Feeling off about the whole thing, the hunter wisely decides to make a quick exit, but as he's walking away, a cloaked figure, an elderly man in black robes, shows up walking beside him. The robed man doesn't say a word, doesn't even glance in the hunter's direction, just a silent, unsettling presence. Now, fast forward to paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. The hunter reaches out to them, feeling the need for some supernatural expertise. Ed and Lorraine follow the hunter into the woods. Lo and behold, they confirm that the strange object is no ordinary artifact. It's an idol used in satanic rituals. So they decide to bring it back to the occult museum. Within just a couple days, though, things got even weirder. Ed finds Lorraine curled up in a fetal position in their driveway. She's completely unresponsive, and it's baffling even to the doctors who tend to her. Ed claimed it was the work of the cloaked figure, a supposed satanic high priest. According to him, this figure sent a warning message by unleashing some mysterious force upon Lorraine. And at number 9 is the mirror. In this story posted to Reddit by user Coffee and Jesus 1986, she tells of a mirror that seemed to bring misfortune to her family wherever they went. She writes, "We had a mirror. I have no idea where we got it. It was fine before we moved. But when moving from our first apartment, a friend who dropped it and cracked it ended up with prostate cancer. We moved it with the crack still in it and hung it up. Everything went wrong. I had a miscarriage, my husband lost his job, I got sick, we decided to pack up and move. Yet again, everything went wrong. Miscarriage, lost 3 family members, it was horrible. Final place we moved with it, hung it up, ended up being a cockroach motel. And yet again, everything went wrong. It was like bad luck kept following us. Got rid of that blasted mirror and half our roach-infested belongings. No problems, 6 years and counting. I haven't told anyone about that stupid mirror. It was bad luck, and nobody can convince me otherwise." Interesting story. As for the mirror having belonged to an evil person, we don't really know that, as she didn't know where they got the mirror, but if you do believe in cursed objects, certainly seems like this mirror falls under that category, and cursed objects are rarely a sign of a friendly original owner. Number 8, the Codex Gigas. The Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible, is a gigantic manuscript believed to have been penned between 1204 and 1230, currently housed in Sweden's National Library since 1768. This ancient book is a hefty compilation of the Old and New Testaments of the Bible, as well as a trove of other knowledge from its time. But what makes it infamous is its association with magic spells and a striking image of the devil, leading to a widespread belief in a curse surrounding the book. According to legend, the Codex Gigas was supposedly written by a monk who found himself facing a death sentence after breaking his vows. In a desperate attempt to save his life, the monk purportedly struck a deal with the devil. The task the monk was to complete was seemingly impossible. He had to transcribe all of human knowledge in a single night. With the devil's assistance, the monk accomplished this Herculean feat. But the cost? His own soul, of course. The demonic portrait featured in the Codex Gigas is said to be the devil's signature, or possibly a tribute to the devil drawn by the monk himself. This book is believed to hold a curse to this very day, with stories circulating that misfortune befalls those who possess or interact with it. Next up on the list, we have the cursed phone number. So this is a peculiar story linked to the Belgian phone number 359-888-888-888. This number was active for 10 years before being disconnected. The number passed through the hands of 3 successive owners, and all of them met untimely deaths. The initial owner got cancer, and the subsequent 2 owners both died as a result of gun violence. The streak of untimely deaths actually caused the Bulgarian mobile phone company to suspend the use of the phone number, and that part is much stranger to me than the coincidental deaths. And at number 6 is the cursed car. So either the car in this story was cursed by some malevolent spirit who really wanted to harm whoever was driving it, or the car just wanted to end it. You be the judge after you hear the story. Undead Gorgeous posted this story to Reddit, writing the following: "My mom had a red Camaro, yes, Christine jokes were made, that was literally cursed. Someone crossed 3 lanes of traffic and hit her while she was driving. She fixes it. Someone else driving the wrong way down a one-way street hits her dead on. She gets it fixed again. Her sister borrows it, parks it outside a 7-Eleven, and garbage truck backs into it, smashes the whole back end. She gets it fixed again. Mind you, this is the 3rd time in 6 months. Driving it home from the shop, someone runs a red light and smashes into the side of it. She gives up and sells it to a friend. The friend takes it into a car wash, the car wash malfunctions, and the whole front end gets crushed / partially impaled by a piece of machinery. Friend wins a lawsuit and scraps the car, ending the cycle." At our number 5 spot is the Doll of Shadows. This is another supposedly cursed item that was housed at the Warren Occult Museum. Unlike a lot of items said to be cursed that look kinda innocuous until you hear the story behind them, this thing doesn't do a great job of hiding the fact that it's evil. The individual who put this thing together didn't have much of a taste for the subtle. It seemed like they were really leaning into the whole evil thing, and you know what? I'm into it. Sure, sometimes less is more, but sometimes more is more. The story begins with 2 unsuspecting doll collectors who, intrigued by this grotesque creation, acquired it from a dealer at an eerily low cost. Little did they know, they were inviting something malevolent into their lives. On the first night, both collectors woke up with inexplicable scratches on their bodies, but that was just the beginning. The real terror struck on the following night when they shared the exact same nightmare, and they'd awoken up to find even worse scratch marks on their bodies. They turned to the renowned paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren for help. They determined that the doll was a conduit for something more sinister. The doll's malevolence extended beyond the realm of dreams, causing physical harm to those unfortunate enough to cross its path. Ed Warren famously stated that the Doll of Shadows had been known to stop people's hearts while trapped in the nightmares it conjured. Next up on the list we have the Clown Doll. In 1966, a man in California stumbled upon a creepy clown doll at a collector's sale. The collector practically forced it into the guy's hands, blabbering about needing to get rid of the thing. It supposedly belonged to a man who had taken the life of his own mother. Why someone would want to bring something like that into their house, regardless of any paranormal beliefs, is beyond me, but I digress. Weird stuff started happening in the guy's place. The doll's eyes seemed to track him, and the air around it just felt off. One night, he could have sworn he heard faint laughter coming from his living room where the doll was displayed. Of course, he was the only one home, and stuff like this just kept happening. He'd find things sitting in places he didn't remember leaving them, and when he had friends over, they would describe having an eerie vibe about the doll as well. Even his dog, usually fearless, refused to go near the thing. Sleep became a luxury, as he'd wake up hearing that same slight laughter from the living room. Was it just part of a nightmare? Was there actually something chuckling in his living room in the middle of the night? He didn't want to wait to find out. Enough was enough, and he chucked the thing out with the trash the very next morning. In 3rd place, we have the Myrtles Plantation Cursed Mirror. The Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana, is known as one of the most haunted places in the country. Eerie Artifacts is a cursed mirror. As for what went on in this place, well, first off, it was a plantation, so its history is inherently dark, but it was originally owned by Mr. and Mrs. Woodruff, who owned a number of slaves, notably Chloe, who suffered incredibly at the hands of the Woodruffs, more so than the rest, which is saying a lot. In a bid for revenge, Chloe baked a cake laced with oleander leaves, unintentionally causing a lethal dose that led to her hanging. In the grand hallway of the Myrtles Plantation, where an antique mirror still hangs, visitors have reported seeing ghostly reflections of the Woodruff children in its aged glass, and a persistent handprint on the mirror never seems to go away, even after being resilvered multiple times. And at number 2, we have the horrendously awful awful paintings by one of the most despicable monsters to ever waddle the face of the earth, John Wayne Gacy. If you don't know who John Wayne Gacy is, you're probably new to this channel, first off, but if evil truly does exist, I'll just say this guy was a perfect example. He was sentenced to death for his crimes in 1980, and while on death row, he decided he'd take up a new hobby: painting. A number of his pieces can be found online, but his most well-known work is his Pogo the Clown painting, which is a self-portrait of sorts. When Gacy wasn't committing his disgusting acts, he worked part-time as a clown. I know that there are good, hard-working, decent clowns out there trying to eke out a living, putting smiles on faces, but the whole Gacy thing really doesn't help make clowns seem any less frightening, and neither does this awful painting. And we're finishing off the list with a tale from Reddit once again. I'm going to call The Quilt. The story was posted by Mom Donger, who wrote, "Hijacking my SO story since he doesn't have a Reddit. His mom bought an old quilt at a flea market. It was a nice one, handmade and dirt cheap. She put it in the guest room, which was pretty much the dog's room at that time. They loved to go in there to play, nap, etc. As soon as the quilt was put in there, they stopped going in. They would stand in the doorway and growl and bark, something that's very out of character for both of them. Things would also fly off the shelves. You would put something up and then find it halfway across the room. Sometimes you could hear banging on the walls. One night, they had my SO's grandmother over. She had a bad back, so he gave her his bed since it was a better mattress. He slept in the guest room with the quilt. The next morning, he woke up completely covered in scratches. His mother eventually had a dream where her grandmother appeared by her bedside and woke her up. She told her, "Get rid of the quilt! You need to get rid of it now!" Next morning, she woke up and threw it away. Stuff stopped flying off the walls, dogs returned to normal, never had a problem since, though sometimes the antique radio turns on by itself.
At number 9 is Annabelle, a seemingly innocent doll with a history far more terrifying than Jigsaw's twisted schemes. The story behind this doll is a pretty creepy one. Donna, a nursing student, was gifted this malevolent puppet back in 1970, and soon she and her roommate Angie were plunged into a nightmare. Cryptic messages materialized, urging them to, quote, help Lou. Lou, their friend, had warned them about the doll's sinister presence from day one. Desperation led them to consult a medium who assured them that Annabelle was just inhabited by the spirit of a deceased little girl, Annabelle Higgins, seeking refuge. They agreed to let the doll stay, a grave mistake. When Lou stayed over, he awoke paralyzed, only to witness Annabelle's lifeless form climbing his body, ready to take the life out of him. Enter paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who unveiled the horrifying truth. See, the medium was deceived. It wasn't a young girl, but a malevolent demon inhabiting Annabelle. Today, the cursed puppet resides behind glass, a malefic entity forever contained. Yet, scoff at its power, and you may find yourself the victim of a sinister fate, like the unfortunate motorcyclist who dared to mock the demon doll. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. I would really appreciate it if you did. At number 8 is the Swedish Chef from The Muppets. That's right. Don't think this guy is scary? Well, consider the fact that this puppet has human arms, a nightmarish fusion of the inanimate and the living, which dances at the crossroads of our deepest fears. In this macabre puppetry, we glimpse at a bizarre, essential quandary. Is this a marionette manipulated by an unseen puppeteer or an abomination of science? The uncanny terror arises from its ambiguity, gnawing at our psyche. But the malevolent absurdity doesn't end there. It claims to be a Swedish chef, a puppet without eyes, armed with a gleaming blade. His relentless cheeriness, juxtaposed with his menacing attributes, is a paradoxical connection that unnerves me. His gibberish tongue, incomprehensible yet strangely menacing, transforms his very world into an enigmatic puzzle. At number 7, in the eerie world of cursed puppets, the clown from Poltergeist from the 1982 film reigns supreme. This classic horror film is a treasure trove of supernatural oddities, but none quite as terrifying as this oversized, malevolent clown doll. It's like taking a master masterclass in tapping into our primal fears, taking the already unsettling visage of a clown and pushing it to grotesque extremes. But what makes it truly nightmarish is the unexpected twist. When those spindly, elongated arms extend towards unsuspecting victims, morphing a lifeless toy into a malevolent predator, it's a spine-chilling transformation. The juxtaposition of innocence and malevolence escalates the fear factor exponentially. While the Jigsaw puppet may craft intricate traps, this cursed clown puppet taps into the primal fear of the uncanny, leaving an undaliable mark on the psyche of horror enthusiasts. At number 6, the cursed toys on eBay. Nightmare dolls, like the ones featured on eBay, are a chilling reminder that cursed puppets can be even scarier than Jigsaw's diabolical games. This particular doll, said to be possessed by the book, carries an aura of malevolence that goes beyond any horror movie. Its origins trace back to an antique shop where an unwitting buyer was warned about the doll's sinister nature, but didn't understand the implications. Soon after taking it home, the Nightmare doll unleashed a torrent of terror. Anyone who crossed its path was plagued by harrowing nightmares and encounters with shadowy figures. The initial owner endured this supernatural torment for just a few months before deciding to part with the doll, hoping to distance herself from its curse. This tale serves as a haunting reminder that the world of cursed puppets is a realm where terror knows no bounds. At number 5, in the world of horror, the name Jigsaw often conjures up spine-tingling images of elaborate traps and moral dilemmas. But what if I told you there's a cursed puppet scarier than Jigsaw himself? Enter Fats, the sinister ventriloquist dummy from the 1978 film Magic, portrayed by none other than Anthony Hopkins. Corky, a mentally troubled magician, finds fame and notoriety through his ventriloquism acts with Fats. However, it doesn't take long for the malevolent nature of this wooden companion to surface. Fats becomes a jealous and malevolent entity, putting Corky's pursuit of love and sanity in jeopardy. What makes Fats truly terrifying is the unsettling blend of the supernatural and psychological horror. This eerie, lifelike presence of Fats, coupled with Anthony Hopkins' masterful performance, creates an atmosphere of dread that rivals Jigsaw's traps. In the world of cursed puppets, Fats reigns supreme, making us question the true depths of human puppet malevolence. At number 4 is Slappy, the sinister puppet from the 2015 adaptation of R.L. Stine's Goosebumps series. Reigns as a puppet of benevolence far more terrifying than Jigsaw, and I don't care what you say. Voiced with eerie charisma by Jack Black, Slappy takes his puppetry to sinister heights, breathing life into fellow monsters to sow chaos across the unsuspecting town. His twisted sense of control surpasses even Jigsaw's penchant for intricate torture. But what truly sets Slappy apart is his chilling vindictiveness. In a bone-chilling showdown, he inflicts harm upon his creator, Stine, portrayed by Jack Black as well. Slappy's brutality knows no bounds as he mercilessly crushes Stine's fingers in a typewriter, a vivid reminder that these cursed puppets possess eerie sentience and malevolence that makes them far more of a fearsome embodiment of horror than any elaborate contraptions. At number 3 is Billy from Dead Silence in 2007. Billy takes the concept of cursed puppets to a spine-chilling level. A puppet in possession of a vengeful ventriloquist, Billy brings terror with a catch. He silences those who scream. In a macabre twist, the mere act of unwrapping this puppet sets the stage for an unsettling game of silence. If you utter a sound in his presence, you're marked for an unsettling demise. The tension arises not from elaborate contraptions, but from the eerie stillness enforced by this malevolent puppet. Imagine the horror of being unable to scream for help as your fate is sealed by a wooden figure with a thirst for silence. Billy, with this haunting simplicity, proves that sometimes the most straightforward horrors are the most spine-tingling. At number 2 is the puppet from FNAF. Imagine a world where inanimate objects come to life, fueled by an eerie, malevolent energy. In this realm of the uncanny, few things can rival the spine-tingling horror induced by this cursed puppet. The unsettling creations are not typical marionettes or ventriloquist dummies. They possess an otherworldly malevolence that defies our expectations. The puppet from Five Nights at Freddy's is a nightmarish character. With its ghastly appearance and unnerving ability to lurk in the shadows, it embodies a bone-chilling dread that eclipses even the diabolical games of Jigsaw. While Jigsaw's traps are indeed horrifying, they're anchored in a twisted sense of justice. In contrast, the cursed puppet seems driven by an indestructible, insatiable thirst for chaos, making him an even more mysterious and terrifying force in the realm of horror. I personally made it to 1020 mode in FNAF 2, so I know a lot about this puppet. At number 1, malevolent marionettes. You see, these benevolent marionettes possess an uncanny ability to tap into our primal fears. Imagine encountering a doll that eerily moves on its own, its hollow eyes fixated on you. Now, unlike Jigsaw's contraptions, which rely on gruesome puzzles, these cursed puppets exploit our innate fear of the unknown with their twisted smiles hiding unspeakable terrors. These sinister creations defy logic, breaking the boundaries between the animate and the inanimate. They exist in that unsettling liminal space where the laws of reality crumble. Just the mere thought of one lurking in the shadows can send shivers down your spine, leaving you paralyzed with dread. So while Jigsaw's elaborate traps may churn your stomach, these cursed puppets tap into something deeper, a primal fear that transcends gore and challenges the very fabric of our sanity.
Number 10, the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is gorgeous. It's 45.52 carats, is a dark grayish blue color, and the pendant surrounding the Hope Diamond contains 16 white diamonds. Now the necklace chain it's on also contains 45 white diamonds, and French monarchs, an heiress, and at least one unlucky postman have met their misfortune after possessing it. The Hope Diamond's allegedly cursed reputation is well known. The diamond gets its name from London banker Henry T. Hope, who purchased it in 1839. After Hope's death, the diamond passed through the hands of various owners, and in America, the gem was feared lost in a shipwreck, but that rumor was refuted when the diamond appeared at a public auction in Paris on June 29, 1909. Evelyn Walsh McLean, a Washington, D.C. socialite and the wife of the former owner of the Washington Post, acquired the diamond in 1911 for $180,000. Now she too suffered the curse of the diamond as her husband died in a mental institution, her eldest son died in a car accident, and her daughter took too many sleeping pills. She believed in the curse, but she continued to wear the diamond but would not sell it for fear of bringing bad luck to someone else, which is really considerate if you think about it. After Evelyn's death in 1947, the diamond was found along with $4 million worth of other jewels stored in shoeboxes in her bedroom. Then Henry Harry Winston, a leading American jeweler and gem dealer, bought the diamond from her estate in 1949, and in 1958 he donated the diamond to the Smithsonian Institution where it is today. Number 9. The Iceman. The mummy of Otzi, aka the Iceman, was found in 1991 in the Otzol Alps, Italy. It is believed that the Iceman belonged to 3000 BCE and his body was preserved because of the glacier that surrounded him after he died. However, soon after his discovery, people who were involved with his discovery began to die due to violent accidents. Forensic pathologist Rainer Henn died in a horrific car accident, mountaineer Kurtz Fritz died in an avalanche, and hiker Helmut Simon died after falling off a dangerous hidden path. The Iceman then claimed 3 more lives in quick succession between 2004 and 2005. It's thought that anyone who comes into contact with the Iceman will die, and people believe the discovery of Iceman is a curse and has the power to destroy mankind. Now that does sound extremely cursed, and I would not want to go near that ever. Number 8. The Little Manny. A 3-inch tall stone head is known as the Little Manny with his daddy's horns. Strange name, I know. After a cleaning lady stumbled upon it in a basement floor in Manchester, England, local scholars Tony Ward and Pat Ellison Reed explored the site and found evidence of a strange ritual. As Manchester Museum curator John Pragg said, it was around a circle of candle holders, and inside the circle they found the remains of chicken and hair bones, ivory counters used for scoring at billiards, and other offerings including a mother figure whose head had been broken off accidentally. Since the Little Manny looked a lot like a Celtic Stonehead, everyone generally assumed that's what it was, but when it was displayed at the Manchester Museum in 1991, a visitor identified it as Namali, a type of figurine from Sierra Leone. While Namali is known to bring strong harvests and other good fortune, the Little Manny seemingly brought a fair amount of bad luck to its British handlers. Manchester Museum staff members suffered car accidents, bike accidents, burglaries, broken pant zippers, and all other manners of trouble. Number 7. Cursed Maori warrior masks. Maoris are the indigenous people of New Zealand, and according to Maori tradition, the warriors carve and paint masks before a battle, and it is said if they die, their spirits live within the mask. The warrior mask is an important part of their tradition. Now, Maori tradition dictates that a menstruating woman is tapu or taboo, and so are the masks. So if both of them come into contact with each other, it would invoke a curse. Also, pregnant women are considered sacred, so a Maori museum in Wellington, New Zealand tells pregnant and menstruating women women to stay away from several sacred Maori artifacts, including traditional Maori warrior masks, as they could invoke a curse. Now, if this could happen, why would they even show it off? It would stress me out if I ever went or worked in that museum. Number 6. The Conjure Chest. The Conjure or Conjured Chest is a chest of drawers that has taken the lives of about 16 people. As the story goes, an enslaved man named Remus custom made this item for his enslaver, Jeremiah Graham, in Kentucky circa 1830. Jeremiah, displeased with Remus's work, beat him to death. Now, in retaliation, Remus's friends then cursed the chest by scattering dried owl blood in its drawers. But the Grahams used this chest and passed it down to their family for 140 years, and death or injury came to anyone who stored their apparel inside. In the mid-20th century, Virginia Carey Hudson Cleveland had 2 of her offspring die and her husband die after being rushed to the hospital for appendicitis. Now, a neighbor also died after an accident involving a weapon, and all had used the chest. So Virginia enlisted the help of her maid, Sally, to undo the curse. They followed the steps that included procuring a dead owl and boiling willow leaves. Sally said that if she or Virginia then died, it would prove that the curse had broken, and months later, Sally did die. When Virginia's daughter inherited the chest, she opted not to use it, which is why she's the smartest person in that family, because why wouldn't they just get rid of it? Number 5. Scarab. Rumor has it that the Smithsonian is the home to many ancient Egyptian treasures and artifacts, and now were they stolen, that's a completely different story, but it is said that these items are cursed, and I mean, with all those movies about Egyptian curses, this really doesn't surprise me. They have a scarab believed to be from King Tut. Now, if you don't know what a scarab was like me, they were popular amulets and impression seals in ancient Egypt. There are many of them, and through their inscriptions and typology, they are an important source of information for archaeologists and historians of the ancient world. Now, it's said that bad luck will follow anyone who touches King Tut's body or anything in his tomb, and since this amulet belonged to him, I'd say watch out. Now, in 1922, when King Tut's tomb itself was unearthed after more than 3,000 years of uninterrupted rest, some believe the pharaoh unleashed a powerful curse of death and destruction upon all who dared to disturb his eternal slumber. So since this scarab belonged to him, it's believed to be actually cursed from King Tut himself, so I'd stay away. Number 4. Black Aggie. Black Aggie is the name given to a statue formerly placed on the grave of General Felix Agnes in Druid Ridge Cemetery in Pikesville, Maryland. Beginning with its installation in 1926, it was surrounded by many urban legends. These included that the spirits of individuals buried at Druid Ridge would annually convene at the statue, that no grass would grow on the ground where the statue's shadow would lie during the daytime, and that the statue would animate itself during the night, whether by physically moving or by showing glowing red eyes. It was said those who saw her eyes were said to have had their lives ended by her, or she would cause you to go blind. Oh, and one last thing, if you sit on the statue's lap at midnight, you will die in 2 weeks. So due to these urban legends, it led to much unwelcome attention towards the statue, and many people were caught breaking into the cemetery at night to visit it, and the pedestal was frequently vandalized. So in response, the Agnes family, disturbed by the attention the statue received, donated it to the Smithsonian in 1967. Besides these legends, there apparently are real stories about this statue taking people's lives. One man put a cigarette out on the statue, which is just disrespectful to begin with, and he was later found dead due to him getting shot in the head. Another man was found dead at the foot of the statue, and no one knows his cause of death. So if I were you, I'd stay far, far away from Black Aggie. Number 3. The Hands Resist Him. The Hands Resist Him is a painting by Bill Stoneham. It's also known as the Haunted eBay Painting. The painting is based off a real-life photograph of the artist from him around the time he was 5 years old. The painting depicts a young boy and a doll in front of a glass door with disembodied hands in the background. Now, a California couple found the painting in an abandoned brewery, but in February 2000, not long after they brought it home, they listed it on eBay with a warning to buyers. It said this painting may or may not possess supernatural powers that could impact or change your life. Now, let me just say, if something you're thinking about buying comes with a warning like that, I'd suggest not buying it. Now, the couple claimed their daughter told them that the boy and girl from the painting would fight with each other at night, and the ad also mentioned that at one point the boy seemingly exited the picture, which is when they decided to sell. It sold for $1,025 to Kim Smith, a gallery owner from Michigan. In an interview, she revealed that she received emails from people who claimed they were repulsed or became physically ill just by viewing a photo of the painting, and I honestly think that they should just burn it. Number 2. the unlucky mummy. The unlucky mummy is an ancient Egyptian artifact in the collection of the British Museum in London. The identity of the original owner is unknown, and this painted wooden mummy board of an unidentified woman was acquired by the British Museum in 1889. So the unlucky mummy isn't actually a mummy, but the mummy board or coffee lid of a high-status woman who lived around 950 to 900 BCE. Discovered in Thebes in the 1800s, the 4 young Englishmen who first purchased the mummy all died in unfortunate circumstances. The mummy board has acquired a reputation for bringing misfortune, as it has been credited with causing death, injury, and large-scale disasters, such as the sinking of the RMS Titanic in 1912, thereby earning the nickname the Unlucky Mummy. The Unlucky Mummy has also been linked to the death of British writer and journalist Bertram Fletcher Robinson. He conducted research into the history of the artifact while working as a journalist for the Daily Express newspaper during 1904. He became convinced that the Unlucky Mummy had malevolent powers and died just 3 years later at age 36 years old. With a name like that, I'd stay away from it too. And coming in at number 1 is the Grand Grimoire. The Grand Grimoire, nicknamed the Gospel of Satan, isn't really a book I'd want to read, and I think a lot of people wouldn't want to read it due to this either. The book is said to be written by a man possessed by the devil. The 16th century book is known as one of the most terrifying occult books in existence. It contains dark incantations and instructions on how to summon demons and raise spirits from the dead. That last part might sound appealing to those who are grieving or suffering from loss, but this book's dark reputation makes it one of the most feared medieval manuscripts of all time. Even opening the book is considered equivalent to selling your soul to the devil. Now thankfully the Grand Grimoire is not available for purchase due to this, and I mean, who would even want to buy that? It's said that the original copy is currently kept in the Vatican secret archives and not currently available to the public, and I think that's a good call.
What you just saw there was footage from KTVN2 News, Nevada. Arrow hit the side of the camera. The crew was covering the story of an infamous entity known as Whiskey Bill. The tale goes back to the Prohibition era. William Whiskey Bill Johnson, a bootlegger who ran an early desert distillery in the 1920s, became well known among miners and settlers for his whiskey. But once Prohibition hit, he went underground and kept producing it illegally. After his death, people started reporting strange activity around the abandoned ruins of his distillery in the Nevada desert. Visitors claimed to hear laughter, clinking glasses, and faint sounds like a busy bar still operating long after it shut down. Some also report sudden cold spots, the smell of whiskey in the air, and arrows being fired out of thin air. This news crew captured some strange things as well, like sound.
Kid you not, at one point of the evening, we heard what sounded like a big band from the 1920s playing on a gramophone.
I was gonna play back.
Shh. That's music. They also spoke to an investigator named Kelly Latham who captured this eerie image.
Yeah, and it's all to see if the paranormal activity appears right when the picture is taken. And sure enough, something did. On me.
What? It's on me? No.
This strange clip comes from an Albanian talk show. Not sure exactly what the hosts were talking about because I don't speak Albanian, but given the upbeat music and the Amy Winehouse name drop, I get the sense it's some kind of entertainment music type show. Anyway, not long into the conversation, a newspaper sitting on the desk does something a newspaper isn't supposed to do unless there's a very, very strong gust of wind.
Pjesa më e madhe janë pushim dhe po e shijojnë dhe një ditë mrekullueshme që është për jashtë. Wow.
I mean, wow is right. That paper just flew off the desk. I mean, we're not talking about like a subtle movement here. If this had been filmed outside, I probably wouldn't have bothered throwing this on the list, but this is an enclosed studio. Even if someone had opened a door and a gust of air rushed in, you'd think the other papers on the desk would have moved too, even just a little bit, but no. All that flies away is that one newspaper. The host also picks it up to examine it. Doesn't appear to have a wire on it. Could it be a hoax, a prank on the hosts? Sure, but I'll let you decide. What do you think? Was this some sort of publicity stunt, or was something genuinely weird captured on live TV? During an episode of the Mexican morning show Sale al Sol, a psychic and clairvoyant, Mondi Vidente, was discussing angels and ghosts, spiritualism, I don't know, whatever it is clairvoyants ramble on about. Then suddenly, a piece of the set fell down. What freaked people out had more to do with when this happened in the conversation. As they got to talking specifically about supernatural, that's when the set decoration toppled down. And that wasn't it, because moments later another set decoration appeared to rotate on its own, catching the attention of host Carlos Arenas, who immediately pointed it out. This led some viewers to wonder if this discussion about the spiritual realm had somehow set off the activity. Had the psychic accidentally summoned a ghost? Well, she thought so. After the broadcast, Vidente posted on social media that she'd sensed a, quote, powerful spirit emerge at the exact moment the objects began to move.
Pounds each, you know, hands up, I bought them to resell.
That chair's beginning to rock. Look at that.
Who's doing that? Stop it. Who's doing that?
During a 2017 episode of the British talk show This Morning, a couple were featured with their possessed doll. Throughout the interview, a chair the doll was sitting on began rocking on its own, multiple times. For some background, a couple had been out one day walking past an antique store when they spotted some old dolls in the window. They figured, hey, they're cheap, maybe we can flip them for a profit, so they grabbed a few. But the second these dolls came through the front door, weird stuff starts happening. They had one of them, the one they actually brought to the studio, sitting on the dresser in their bedroom, and one morning the husband gets up, jumps in the shower, and out of nowhere feels this burning sensation on his leg. It wasn't the water. So they moved the doll into their shed and stuck it inside a plastic bin. A couple days go by, the wife goes out to check on it, opens the bin, and the doll's necklace is missing. When they put it in there though, it had been wrapped up tight. And on the night before their appearance on the show, they had a weird experience in their hotel room.
2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and heard like a swishing noise going around my side of the bed.
She said it sounded like someone's clothing rustling as they walked by the bed. Of course, nothing was there. Ended up getting rid of that doll. Next up, we have the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This massive diamond originating from India has passed through various hands, leaving a trail of tragedy and misfortune with those who have owned it, primarily men. A Hindu description of the diamond states, "He who owns this diamond will own the world, will also know all its misfortunes. Only God or woman can wear it with impunity." The Koh-i-Noor's first recorded appearance dates back to the 14th century, when it belonged to the Kakatiya dynasty. It was later seized by various rulers, including Babur, the founder of the Mughal Empire, but its dark reputation began to take shape when the diamond came into possession of Shah Jahan, the Mughal emperor, who was imprisoned by his son, and is said to have met a grim end, with the Koh-i-Noor playing a role in his downfall. The diamond changed hands a bunch more times, passing through the Afghan, Persian, and Sikh empires. Every ruler who came into possession of it would meet a horrific end, and every empire would collapse. Number 8, the haunted wedding dress. Anna Baker's cursed wedding dress is a haunted legend that hails from Blair County, Pennsylvania. Anna Baker, the daughter of a wealthy family in the mid-1800s, fell in love with a lowly ironworker, but her father strongly disapproved of the match and did not approve of a marriage. So Anna was coerced into marrying another wealthy suitor, breaking her heart. The wedding never took place though, with Anna refusing to ever marry. She would wear her dress every night before bed, dancing alone in the middle of the night. It was said that she slowly began losing her sanity. Legend has it that Anna, unable to bear the pain of her lost love, died a bitter old maid in the Baker mansion. As the years passed, strange occurrences were linked to this dress. People claimed to hear the sound of a woman weeping in the mansion. The dress itself was rumored to move on its own within a sealed glass case. Visitors also reported experiencing sudden drops in temperature near the dress, and some were overwhelmed by this eerie, sorrowful presence. Today, the cursed wedding dress is on display in the Baker Mansion Museum, still said to be infused with the heartache and resentment of a love denied. Next on the list, we have the Myrtles Plantation Cursed Mirror. The Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana is renowned for its haunted reputation, and this mirror is one of the most haunted objects in the home. Mr. and Mrs. Woodruff were the original owners of the home, and they owned a number of slaves, one of which was named Chloe, who was treated even worse than the other slaves who worked on the property. At one point, she had her ears cut off by Mr. Woodruff, and she decided decided to plan her revenge. She poisoned the family with oleander leaves, which she baked into a cake. She hadn't planned to take their lives, but the dose ended up being lethal, and Chloe was hanged. Even after these events, the home would be the site of more tragedy, making this one of the most haunted locations in the USA. Now, for the mirror. In the grand hallway, there is an antique mirror. A number of visitors have reported spotting the ghostly reflections of the Woodruff children inside the mirror. There's also a handprint that just doesn't seem to go away even after the mirror is resilvered. And at number 6 is the Screaming Skull, or Screaming Skulls in general. There are multiple Screaming Skulls that have been reported throughout history. Probably the most famous, though, is the Battiscombe Screaming Skull of Dorset, England. Each of these skulls has its own story attached to it. Usually someone makes it known that they want to be buried back in their homeland when they die, or want something specifically done with their skull after death. Then they meet some grisly end, their wishes for their desired burial aren't met, and thus a curse is released. Whenever someone tries to remove or disrespect the skull, things get weird. Strange noises start happening, screams, wails. People are met with tragedy in their lives. They're cursed, and whenever the skull is tossed out or attempted to be buried, it mysteriously makes its way back to where it was before. Next up, we have the haunted chairs at Belcourt Castle. Belcourt Castle in Newport, Rhode Island is apparently very, very haunted. So haunted that in an almost Pee-wee's Playhouse kind of way, even the chairs themselves seem to have a life of their own, or curse of their own. Visitors describe a cold sensation when they come close to the chairs. There's even one story about a man who sat on one only to be thrown off it. Some visitors have also seen ghostly apparitions sitting in these chairs. Other cursed items at the castle include a suit of armor. Classic, love that gothic horror vibe this place seems to have. Apparently the original owner of the armor took a spear to the face and, of course, didn't make it. Some say they can hear ghostly cries of pain in the dead of night, especially in the month of March, when the original owner of the armor died. Next up is the Hope Diamond. Our story begins in the 17th century, where this blue gem made its debut in India. Over time, it passed to a number of owners, landing in the collection of a wealthy French merchant named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. But there were dark rumors surrounding the diamond, that whoever was in possession of it would be cursed, and Tavernier would meet a gruesome end, dying of a terrible fever, with his corpse then being torn apart by wild dogs. Fast forward to the 19th century, the diamond found its way into possession of King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette, who, as we know, faced a tragic fate at the guillotine during the French Revolution. And the early 20th century, American socialite Evelyn Walsh McLean acquired the Hope Diamond, and her life would be full of hardship from that point on. She lost her son in a car accident, her husband left her. The curse seemed to persist when the diamond passed into the hands of jeweler Harry Winston. He later donated it to the Smithsonian Institution, where it remains to this day. Number 3, Robert the Doll. Let's travel back to 1904, sunny Key West, Florida. That's where the story of Robert kicks off. A doll given to a 4-year-old named Robert Eugene Otto. Now, there are different versions of how this doll came into the picture. Some say it was a gift from Gene's grandpa, while others spin a tale of a grumpy maid who cursed the doll before handing it over to the kid. Point is, it's supposedly cursed. As young Gene grew up, something strange started happening. Whenever his stuff got messed up or broken, he'd point right at the doll and say, Robert did it. Fast forward a bit, Gene became an artist, tied the knot, moved back to his childhood home, which he called the Artist House, but his wife wasn't too keen on Robert the Doll, so it got booted up to the attic. Now, here's where things get really creepy. Folks walking by the house started whispering about Robert's odd antics. They'd swear up and down that they saw the doll moving on its own and even poking its head out of the attic window. People who visited would claim they heard strange footsteps and ghostly giggles coming from the attic. And when Gene passed away, Robert was passed on to Myrtle Reuter. She put up with 2 whole decades of weird stuff happening thanks to the doll, before saying, you know what, enough is enough. Robert found a new home at Fort East Martello Museum, where he still sits to this day. People still see him moving around from time to time. Then at number 2, we have the Iceman. Back in 1991, a group of adventurous hikers stumbled upon a frozen figure in the heart of the Ötztal Alps, right on the border of Austria and Italy. What they uncovered was the remarkably preserved body of a middle-aged man who had met a violent end more than 5,000 years ago, taken by an arrow. He was given the name Ötzi the Iceman. Australian molecular archaeologist Thomas Loy conducted an in-depth study of this frozen relic. His investigation revealed traces of multiple individuals' blood on Ötzi, hinting at a violent end in the midst of a skirmish. Thomas Loy passed away from natural causes later on at the age of 63, but some began speculating of a sinister curse that seemed to cling to Ötzi. In the year following his discovery, a series of tragic events affected folks closely linked to him. Forensic pathologist Rainer Henn, responsible for moving Ötzi's remains, met his end in a car accident while en route to deliver a lecture on Iceman, coincidentally. Shortly after that, mountain climber Kurt Fritz, who had piloted the helicopter that retrieved Ötzi, died from an avalanche. The list of tragic deaths continued with Rainer Holtz, the videographer of the retrieval, succumbing to a brain tumor. As time passed, 3 more individuals connected to Ötzi died prematurely. Helmut Simon, one of the original hikers, died after a fall. Archaeologist Konrad Spindler, key researcher, died due to complications from multiple sclerosis. Yeah, pretty interesting. I mean, although people do die, I think we all know that, but finally, at a number 1 spot, we have King Tut's tomb. We're zipping back to 1922 in the heart of Egypt, where archaeologist Howard Carter stumbled upon the burial chamber of the boy king Tut. In Kumen, this was obviously an incredible discovery, but things got strange from here on out. There were whispers of a curse hovering over this ancient tomb. Legend has it that anyone who dared to disturb King Tut's eternal slumber would face a grim fate. And the moment Carter and his team cracked open the tomb, the curse supposedly swung into action. Odd things started happening to those connected with the discovery. Lord Carnarvon, who financed the expedition, met an untimely death at the hands of a mosquito, which is probably the most embarrassing way I can think of to go. It turns out this curse isn't just deadly, it's damn cruel as well. Others in the team began facing misfortune as well. Illness, accidents, more mysterious deaths. The curse wasn't limited to the excavation team either. It seemed to spread to anyone who came into contact with King Tut's treasures. Even those who just visited the tomb were rumored to be cursed thereafter. People just love Vikings. They're one of the coolest types of warriors from history. Today we're diving into some of the creepiest artifacts that have been found that are from the Vikings. Alright, let's get started with a Viking burial pit. A burial pit full of decapitated Vikings. So in 2009, during preparations for a new road in Ridgeway Hill, Dorset, archaeologists made a pretty gnarly discovery. It was a burial pit containing the decapitated remains of 54 young men. The bodies had been dumped in a shallow grave, with their heads stacked on one side. Whatever had happened here, whether it was a or a ritualistic sacrifice, it all went down around the year 1000, right around the time Vikings were constantly pestering Anglo-Saxons violently, mind you, on the south coast of England. They also did isotope testing on the men's teeth, which showed they were from Scandinavia. The main theory is that these men had been Viking mercenaries. It didn't look like they'd been killed haphazardly though. Their wounds looked like they'd been made pretty clean and methodically, so there's a good chance they'd been rounded up and sent back to Odin at the hands of a sword through the neck. Next on the list, we have Viking bog bodies. For starters, what are bog bodies? Well, they're bodies that were buried in bogs. Well, what happens in this case is that they end up being preserved relatively well, similar to mummification, but they're incredibly creepy. The skin becomes pure black. They end up looking like raisin people. Now, bog bodies aren't unique to Viking Age Scandinavia. They've been around in different parts of Europe, but in the case of the Vikings, it looks like they buried some folks in bogs intentionally, possibly sacrificially or as a form of punishment. One story goes that King Harald Bluetooth of Denmark drowned the Norwegian queen Gunhild in a bog after tricking her into coming to Denmark with the promise of a marriage alliance. There have also been a number of Viking Age bog bodies found with pretty gnarly wounds showing that they had pretty agonizing deaths, and some researchers have said that this could be evidence of this type of burial being reserved for terrible criminals or unhonorable members of society. Next on the list we have another mass grave, but this one ups the ante. We don't just have 54 dead Vikings here, we have over 250, about 264 to be exact. So much freakier. The grave was discovered in 1979 in Repton, England by a husband and wife team of archaeologists. It was a bunch of Viking graves. They were digging around a church and found a pile of bones that turned out to be from the time when the Vikings were causing complete chaos in England. This was a big deal because it confirmed that the Vikings had been there wreaking havoc, like they did. More recently, scientists did testing on the bones to figure out exactly how old they were. They found out that the bones matched up with the time when the Vikings were in Repton, just like the original archaeologists thought. What's really interesting about this find is that there was a discrepancy in the carbon dating for years. At first, the archaeologists thought these were Viking remains just by, seeing them. But when the bones were carbon dated, it looked like they were from well before the Viking Age. But they hadn't accounted for how much fish was in the Vikings' diet, which can throw off carbon dating, they've recently found. So it makes the bones seem older than they actually are. So it was recently found that these were indeed Vikings, though. The dig also turned up some other cool stuff, like Viking weapons and coins. Next, we have the remains from St. Brice's Day. In 2008, the remains of over 30 fighting-age men were found buried in a mass grave during an excavation at St. John's College, Oxford. They were believed to be Danes, some of the victims of the St. Brice's Day. Pretty dark day in English history. It happened on November 13th in the year 1002. The King of England at the time, Athelred II, also known as Athelred the Unready, not because he was always late, but because he just wasn't great at ruling, a lot of people thought. Well, he got really worried about all the Vikings hanging around in England at the time. The story goes that he was told that the Danes were going to take his life and then take over his kingdom. So he handled things. He came up with a plan, just kill all of them. All the Danish people living in England, just like Frieza did with the Saiyans. And there were a fair number of Danish folks living in England at the time. So on that day, all across England, Danish men were attacked and killed. Next on the list, we have Andvari's Cursed Ring. So this thing is straight out of Norse mythology, so a bit different than most of the stuff on this list, but the story is pretty fascinating and strange, like a lot of ancient mythology is. So Andvari was a dwarf who lived under a waterfall. He also had the power to shapeshift into a fish, specifically a pike. He had this magical ring, the source of all his power and wealth. But Andvari, while in fish form, got trapped in the Norse god Loki's net. He'd been catching fish, but was pleasantly surprised when one of the fish turned into a dwarf and had a nice ring on one of his digits. Loki ended up swiping the ring from him. He needed the ring to pay off a debt after accidentally killing one of the Dwarf King's sons, who'd taken on the form of an otter. Andvari then placed a curse on his ring, that whoever possessed it would be cursed with misfortune and ultimately meet a pretty grim fate. Well, Loki gave the ring to the Dwarf King Hredmar to make amends, but it turned out that Andvari was also one of Hredmar's sons. Not knowing the ring was now cursed, tragedy befell pretty much his entire family. His sons became greedy for the ring and all met pretty grim fates once they got their hands on it. I'm summing things up, of course. This story would be the length of the entire video if I went into every detail, but the story probably does sound a bit familiar. Yes, it is one of the many pieces of ancient mythology that inspired Tolkien when writing Lord of the Rings. Next on the list we have the Vale of York Hoard. This is a pretty cool artifact, or collection of artifacts rather, that really encapsulates what Vikings were all about. Just traveling around and taking stuff. The artifacts were found in 2007 by a father and son using metal detectors. It was a gilt silver cup or pot, which is already a treasure in itself, but it contained more treasure, mostly coins, but there were also ornaments and bars of silver, jewelry, and the coolest part was that all of this stuff was from different parts of the world, mostly Europe, of course, but some of the items were from as far as Afghanistan. Like, Vikings, they live up to their name. They got around, and it's pretty amazing to see direct physical evidence of it with a collection like this. Now, were some of these items gifted to whoever this Viking was? Probably. They weren't like just pillaging and killing all the time like we've been mostly led to believe, but it's also pretty safe to say some of this stuff was taken by force or picked up after a raid. Next on the list we have Viking teeth modifications. If you were like me, the dentist is one of the worst places you can be. Having stuff poking and prodding at your teeth it just hurts, and you're looking up at that light and you feel like aliens are dissecting your body. It's just the worst. So imagine having lines and like shapes etched into your teeth. That would probably be pretty painful. But Vikings did it. It's not entirely clear why they'd modify their teeth, but we can speculate that it was to make them appear more fierce. Skeletal remains of ancient Norsemen have been dug up in Sweden and Denmark with horizontal grooves cut into their teeth. For the most part, they're just horizontal lines, but there have been other shapes found as well. Again, it's not 100% known why some of them did this, but it's said that maybe they dyed the grooves to create cool lines on their teeth, almost like tattoos. It would have been extremely painful again, and it wasn't super common, but it was definitely a bit of an ancient Swedish and Scandinavian trend. There are plenty of cultures around the world that would do something similar to this, but Vikings are the only known culture in medieval Europe to have practiced it. Now, I couldn't do this list without talking about Viking ships. I mean, remnants of Viking longboats have been found in various parts of Europe, and what an incredible feeling it would be to discover one of these things. Incredibly cool, but undeniably eerie at the same time. I mean, these ships crossed vast expanses of water carrying fierce warriors who completely changed the course of history in Europe. If there really are curses or dark forces that linger and latch themselves onto ancient artifacts, I mean, I think Viking ships are most definitely on that list. And the same goes for their weapons. I'm not quite sure what would be cooler to find. A longboat, a piece of Viking armor, or a weapon. I like swords, so I'm gonna go with a weapon, but let me know what you'd want to find down in the comments. Cursed swords and axes are pretty prevalent in Viking mythology, but again, if cursed objects really are a thing, pretty safe to say that these weapons that took the lives of so many unfortunate souls during Viking raids probably have some dark energy lingering on them of some kind. Again, if you believe in that sort of thing. And we're finishing off today's list with Naglfar, the ship of the dead. So in Norse mythology, Naglfar is this massive ship made entirely from the fingernails and toenails of the dead, which is pretty metal. Naglfar is said to be destined for a pretty ominous purpose. During Ragnarok, which is basically the end of the world in Norse beliefs, Naglfar is supposed to set sail. It's helmed by the giants, who are the enemies of the gods, and when Naglfar sails during Ragnarok, it's a sign that things are about to get very chaotic and apocalyptic. The idea of a ship made from nails might sound pretty strange, but in Norse mythology it's all about symbolism and like just dramatic imagery. Naglfar represents this looming threat, this unstoppable force that signals the coming of Ragnarok and the ultimate showdown between the forces of good and the forces of evil. But a ship made of the fingers and toenails of the dead that sets sail at the coming of the apocalypse, that's about as cursed as it gets, I think.
At number 10, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. When it comes to creepy puppets, we've all heard of Jigsaw from the Saw franchise, but let me introduce you to something even more unsettling. Enter the YouTube series that blurs the line between nightmares and nostalgia. Picture this, a world filled with anthropomorphic puppets reminiscent of Sesame Street or the Muppets, with a childlike colorful facade. Seems harmless, right? Wrong. This series takes a sinister turn, twisting your innocent childhood memories into a bizarre and disturbing tale. Each episode starts innocently enough, but it's all just a facade, because it goes from seemingly harmless to seriously horrifying real quick. But it doesn't stop there. This show goes beyond the web series realm, with a follow-up television series coming in 2023, delving into even more disturbing subjects. It's a captivating blend of creativity and terror that garnered widespread acclaim, making it a standout in the realm of web series and soon in the world of television as well.
No better way to start off than with a cursed doll, right? Okiku is said to be one of the most haunted dolls in Japan. In 1918, a young man named Akichi Suzuki saw the doll sitting in a shop in Sapporo and decided to buy it for his younger sister, Okiku. who fell in love with the doll instantly, taking it with her wherever she went, and she named the doll Okiku after herself. But just 1 year later, Okiku caught the yellow fever, and she died still grasping the doll. The family built an altar for her where they placed the doll, and soon things would start to get strange. First, they began to notice that Okiku the doll's hair looked different than it did before. It looked like it had grown, and the hair that had been all neat and tidy now had split ends. On top of that, strange things would happen throughout the house. Lights would flicker, they'd hear loud bangs and whispers, especially close to important dates, like Okiku's birthday or the anniversary of her death. In 1938, the family moved to a different district, but they didn't take the doll with them, believing that it was important for it to remain close to their daughter's resting place. So they gifted the doll to a local temple, where it still remains to this day, and that hair is still said to grow and gets regular trimmings.
Next up, we have the Iceman, which, cursed aside, you most likely wouldn't want in your home anyways, because it's literally the mummified remains of a 5,000-year-old man that were found in the Alps in 1991 and are believed to have caused the death of all those involved in its extraction. In the 13 years that followed the discovery and removal of the man perfectly preserved in ice, who had likely died after being hit in the back of the head with an arrow from a remote area in the mountains, one by one, all of the people involved in the discovery died. I guess they should have let the sleeping Iceman lie. One of the researchers involved in the discovery, Hen, was killed in a car crash on his way to give a speech about the artifact, and another, Fritz, an experienced climber, died shortly after in an avalanche. He was the only member of his climbing party to be struck. In the years that followed, the other researchers died of brain tumors, complications from multiple sclerosis, freezing to death in a freak blizzard, and a blood disorder. Today, the Iceman rests in a refrigerated room in the South Tyrol Archaeological Museum in Italy, which, lucky for me, is nowhere near Canada.
Next, we have a haunted doll from Australia, Letta. And good lord, of course this thing is haunted. How would it not be? That is not easy on the eyes. The doll first started making the rounds when a man named Kerry Walton began showing up on various talk shows with the doll that he named Letta, full name Letta Me Out, because he believed there was some sort of spiritual force trapped within the doll. Walton had been exploring an abandoned building in Wagga Wagga one day in 1972 when he came across the abomination, and for some reason was like, this thing belongs at my house. So he took it home, and the rest is history. He started noticing scuff marks on the floor that didn't belong to him right around the time he welcomed Letta into his home. He'd even noticed the doll move slightly on its own right in front of him. Other people would claim to feel this uncomfortable unease around Letta. There are even stories about the doll causing people to faint.
Next up, a lot of dolls on this list. We've got the real-life Annabelle. If you're not sure what I mean by that, Annabelle is a horror movie about a haunted doll named Annabelle, who is directly based off a real-life haunted doll also named Annabelle. The real-life doll was an innocent-looking Raggedy Ann doll, and she was gifted to a nurse living in Hartford, Connecticut. After receiving the doll, she and her roommate, a fellow nurse, began noticing incredibly strange occurrences around their home. The doll would mysteriously appear and disappear from rooms around the house and uncross and cross her legs when no one was looking. And then, one day, the nurses came home to find "Help Me" written on a piece of parchment paper and crayons scattered across the floor. And soon after, they witnessed Annabelle moving firsthand right in front of their eyes, lifting her arms up at the dining room table. They then took the doll to a medium who believed that it was inhabited by the spirit of a young, harmless woman. But shortly after that, one of the nurse's fiancés visited their home. and that was proved wrong. He had a nightmare about Annabelle before waking up in a fuss and throwing the doll across the room in anger, when all of a sudden 4 large scratches appeared across the man's body. The women then took the doll to a priest who instructed them to seek the assistance of paranormal experts Ed and Lorraine Warren, who believed the doll to be possessed by a demon. Annabelle was then taken from the nurse's home in the pair's car. They actually had a car crash on the way to bring it to the Occult Museum in Connecticut, where it now resides in a sealed box.
A cursed jewelry box. Don't hear about that every day. Apparently this jewelry box has the spirit of an old school bus driver named Wendy trapped inside it, and if that sounds enticing to you, then good news, because it's currently up for auction on eBay. In the description, the seller Amanda gives a lot of detail about the box, where she got it, and how she discovered that it was haunted. So Amanda had stumbled on the box at an estate sale and was just drawn to it for some reason. She bought it and then did an investigation. She started receiving messages through EVP and a spirit box. The words Wendy, school, happy, love, and peace came through. She ended up going back to the estate sale to learn more. She started chatting up the organizers, and she discovered that the sale had been run by the children of a woman named Wendy, who had recently passed away. Wendy, a retired school bus driver who also worked as a substitute teacher and field trip chaperone, was deeply involved in her community, and it turned out that the jewelry box had been a gift from her husband. The music box is said to be now a vessel for the spirit of Wendy. All I hear is that there's a ghost in the box, so, what are you waiting for? Place your bids.
Next up, we've got the Hope Diamond, which honestly is anything but hopeful. The curse of the Hope Diamond, considered to be the world's most cursed gemstone, started all the way back in the 17th century. It was stolen from a Hindu statue by a man named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier. After the theft, one of the temple's priests put a curse on the artifact that would affect anyone who laid claim to it. Shortly after, Tavernier died of an intense fever. The diamond later came into the possession of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, both of whom were guillotined shortly after. During the French Revolution, the diamond was stolen by a French jeweler whose son killed him for the diamond and then killed himself after having the diamond in his possession for too long. After that, the diamond went missing for many years. It resurfaced in the 1900s. When it resurfaced in the 1900s, one of its owners drove their car off a cliff and another watched their son and daughter die, and then their husband leave them for another woman. The diamond was then sold to a jeweler who then donated it to the Smithsonian after his house burnt down and he got into a life-threatening car accident, which is where it remains to this day.
A doll of shadows is not the kind of thing that comes to mind when you think creepy doll. It doesn't look like a normal doll that just happens to have a dark backstory. This thing is right out of a nightmare. In fact, it even has real human bones built into it and a human tooth. Not only does it look terrifying though, it's said to make terrifying things happen. 2 collectors bought the doll from a dealer who really seemed like he just wanted the thing off his hands. He practically gave it to them for free, and it became pretty clear why. In the days that followed, the 2 collectors would wake up having had these awful nightmares, some of the worst, most vivid nightmares in their life. On top of that, they'd find scratch marks on their bodies that just got worse and worse the longer they had the doll. So they took the thing to Ed and Lorraine Warren, who confirmed that there was some malevolent force linked to the doll, a force that connects with people through their dreams. The doll was safely housed at the Warren Occult Museum, but that's closed now, so who knows where the Doll of Shadows could be lurking now.
Next up, we've got the Koh-i-Noor diamond, which currently holds the title of the 90th largest diamond in the world, sitting at 105.6 carats or 21.12 grams. Imagine that on your finger. Although it's believed to have weighed as much as 793 carats before it was first cut. While its origins are disputed and ultimately unknown, what is known is that prior to reaching England at a weight of 186 carats, the diamond made its way through Europe, causing the death of any man who dared to don the jewel. One owner was killed while in Iran, another was imprisoned, and another watched 3 of his brothers die. Somehow, however, women didn't seem to be affected by the stone, and so by the time it had reached the UK, it was believed that the curse only affected the men who wore it, a belief which the Brits took very seriously. To this day, the imperfect diamond, which was cut to increase its brilliance when it arrived to the British monarchy, has only ever been worn by women, including the late Queen Elizabeth herself.
Reddit user BrilliantTackle5408 shared a story about a beautiful Victorian-era mirror they inherited from their grandmother, who had just recently passed away, a mirror that they quickly learned had a dark energy attached to it. At first they thought everything was normal when they hung the vintage mirror in their bedroom, but soon they started seeing strange shapes and figures in its reflection. Brilliant Tackle even heard faint whispers at night, at first thinking it was just old house noises, but the whispers got clear, even hearing their grandmother's voice at one point. And one night they were organizing some old family photos and glanced at the mirror, and there in the reflection was their grandmother standing right behind them, her eyes empty and hollow, her grin stretched impossibly wide. They moved the mirror to the basement immediately, hoping to stop the disturbances, but the whispers would persist.
And finally, we have the La Peregrina Pearl, which is beautiful, but unfortunately out of my price range. Also, it's cursed. The pearl was originally discovered by a slave off of the Gulf of Panama before it made its way into the Spanish Royal Crown's collection of jewels, after which the King of Spain, Philip II, sent the pearl to England as a gift for his future wife, Mary I. Mary was a devout Catholic with an incredibly high fondness for the prosecution of Protestants. During her rule, over 280 Protestants were burned at the stake in accordance with her orders, every one of which she bore witness to while wearing the La Peregrina Pearl, which is what ultimately resulted in her earning the nickname Bloody Mary. When she died at the age of 42, the pearl was returned to Spain, where it made its way through various members of the Spanish royal family, leaving behind a wake of misfortune. Husbands and wives committing adultery with members of their own families, killings, and mysterious illnesses were common afflictions among those who possessed the pearl, which now is under private, undisclosed ownership.
And we're kicking off the list with Thomas Busby's chair. It all began in the early 18th century in North Yorkshire, England, when a man named Thomas Busby was sentenced to death for taking the life of his father-in-law. Before his execution, Busby had one last request: a final meal at his favorite pub, the Thirsk Tavern. After his meal, he supposedly cursed the chair he'd been sitting in, declaring that anyone who dared to sit in it would meet a grim fate. And over the years, the cursed chair earned a reputation for causing misfortune to those who sat in it. Various stories emerged of people who dared to disregard the curse, only to meet untimely deaths in accidents, battle, or from mysterious ailments. Canadian airmen from a nearby Royal Air Force base were rumored to have mocked the curse and met tragic ends during World War II. The chair's curse became so notorious that the Thirsk Museum decided to hang it on the ceiling to deter people from testing their luck. That's still where the chair sits to this day, by the way. And we're starting off the list with the Vigango statues. Vigango statues are sacred wooden sculptures created by the Mijikenda people of Kenya, made not just to honor the dead, but are also said to hold the spirit of the deceased within them. They're an essential part of the burial rituals within the Mijikenda community, and one of the most important rules about these statues is that they cannot, under any circumstances, be moved from where they were erected. If this happens, it's a bad omen for the tribe. Droughts, premature deaths, the list goes on. This is because removing these memorial markers disrupts the spiritual harmony between the living and the dead, leading to a curse. The worst part about this is that it's not affecting the individual thieves or buyers, but the entire tribe or community from which these statues were taken. Some of these statues have found their way into the art market. They're often sold to collectors or displayed in museums, museums, both locally and internationally. Many argue that these artifacts should be returned to their places of origin, and they would be right. Sure, it's cool seeing these things in person, but is it worth tormenting an entire community of people over? I don't know. That doesn't really seem like a fair trade-off to me. Number 9, the Ring of Sinacianus, also known as the Vine Ring. This is an ancient Roman ring associated with a curse. It's said to have a curse inscribed right on it. The Latin inscription reads, Sinaciane vivas in diem, which translates to Sinacianus, may you live in God. The curse is believed to have been invoked by a man named Sylvanus, who accused Sinacianus of stealing the ring. Sylvanus, seeking divine intervention, dedicated the curse to the god Nodens, a Celtic deity associated with healing and the sea, in an effort to recover the ring. The last known record places the ring at the Vine, a historic estate in Hampshire, England. The National Trust, which manages the Vine, displayed the ring for public viewing. The curse associated with the ring of Sinacianus is thought to bring misfortune and suffering to anyone who possesses or wears the ring without rightful ownership. If this is reminding you at all of Lord of the Rings, by the way, you're not alone. The ring was definitely a part of J.R.R. Tolkien's inspiration for the story. Next up on the list is the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is a famous blue diamond with a long and storied history. It is one of the most renowned gems in the world, known not only for its exceptional size and color, but also for the supposed curse associated with it. The Hope Diamond is currently housed in the National Gem and Mineral Collection at the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. The diamond has been on display there since it was donated to the Smithsonian Institution by Harry Winston in 1958. The story begins when the diamond was stolen from an idol in India, though. According to the legend, the curse would bring misfortune and tragedy to anyone who possessed or wore the diamond. King Louis XIV and Marie Antoinette are two of the most notable historical figures believed to have possessed the Hope Diamond during their reigns. Both faced tragic ends. In 1839, Henry Thomas Hope purchased the diamond and gave it its name. His untimely death led his family to sell the gem to settle gambling debts. Jeweler Wilhelm False acquired the Hope Diamond and shortly after died at the hands of his very own son, who then went on to take his own life. Evelyn Walsh McLean, an early 20th century owner, experienced a series of tragedies as well, including the premature deaths of her son and daughter, and then her husband left her, went insane, and eventually died. At our number 7 spot, we have the Unlucky Mummy. Mummies, one of the staples of museums. This mummy is believed to bring misfortune to those who come in contact with it. It's said to have been the cause of various unfortunate incidents throughout its history. I'll let you in on a little secret. That's how it got the name Unlucky Mummy. It was excavated from a tomb in Thebes during the 19th century, and because the tomb was fiddled with, disturbing the mummy's final resting place, often considered a taboo in ancient Egyptian culture. Really, it's probably taboo to mess with anyone's tomb, I think. But anyway, a curse was said to be unleashed. Individuals who were associated with the excavation or possession of the unlucky mummy have experienced a series of unfortunate events, like dying. There have also been accidents and financial ruin, which this mummy was said to be responsible for. The mummy has been on display in the British Museum since 1889. Number 6, the Woman from Lem. The Woman from Lem is an archaeological artifact, a small limestone statue representing a woman. The story goes that it will bring misfortune and death to those who possess it. The Woman from Lem is believed to have originated from a burial site in Lem, Cyprus, dating back to around 3500 BC. The origins of this thing are pretty murky, which just makes it even more mysterious and eerie. It's currently on display in the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh. The curse is said to affect those who come into contact with the statuette, leading to a series of unfortunate events, including illness and death. And just like with any ancient cursed object, the bad stuff started happening when it was taken from its original location. Accidents, financial ruin, and premature death have been said to plague those who have interacted with the object, which is why the Woman from Lem has earned its nickname as the Goddess of death. At our number 5 spot, we have the Catskills crone. About 7 years ago, a pair of hikers were traversing the Catskill Mountains in New York State when they came across an old-looking statue in a cave. The object had nails driven into its eyes and a rope around its neck. They decided to bring the thing home with them for some reason, and things got weird. They began finding muddy footprints that would randomly appear in their home, and at one point they even saw the apparition of a ghostly hag. They posted their experience on Reddit, hoping to gain some insight, and one of the folks who chimed in, known as Newkirk on Reddit, is the director of a museum specializing in cursed objects, and this is what he had to say. Hey everyone, you guys might remember that about 6 months ago there was a post in the sub from a hiker who claimed that he and a friend found a strange carving in a New York cave. Long story short, they took it home and boom, bad haunting, poltergeist activity, apparition, and wet footprints manifesting along with a strong scent of pond water. A full-blown haunting, if he was to be believed. There were lots of great responses in the thread, and after getting a few emails from friends who know what I do for a living, I logged in and threw my 2 cents into the ring. I'm the director of a paranormal and occult museum based out of Cincinnati, and he ended up sending the item to me. Half a year later, I can say with a good amount of certainty that the carving, which we've nicknamed the crone, is definitely haunted. I don't say things like that lightly, but within hours of the object arriving at my office, I'm fairly certain it pulled Jesus off a crucifix hanging on the wall, was the cause of phantom knocks, wet footprints on my couch, and we even caught it moving with a motion-activated camera. The last straw was when it tried to drop a television on my head. Next up is the Koh-i-Noor diamond. This is a highly famous diamond with a long and storied history. Originally mined in India, the diamond has changed hands multiple times over centuries. Right now, the Koh-i-Noor diamond is part of the British Crown Jewels and is set in the front of the Queen Mother's crown. It's on display in the Tower of London. There are tons of tales of the bad stuff that's happened to those who have had this diamond in their possession, specifically men. The diamond brings misfortune to male owners while bringing good fortune to female owners. It was in possession of various rulers, including the Mughals, the Persian rulers, and the Sikh Maharajas, before being seized by the British East India Company in the mid-19th century. The Koh-i-Noor was presented to Queen Victoria in 1850, and since then, it's been part of the British Crown Jewels. And number 3 are the Maori warrior masks. Maori warrior masks, originating from the indigenous Maori people of New Zealand, are traditional artifacts that hold cultural and spiritual significance. These masks were created for the specific rituals and ceremonies, often serving as representations of ancestors and embodying spiritual power. So, when these masks are removed from their sacred settings, it's said to disrupt the spiritual balance and invoke misfortune on the people possessing or displaying them. The curse is thought to bring bad luck, illness, or even death to individuals or institutions that have acquired the masks without proper cultural respect. Some claim that returning the masks to their place of origin is a way to break the curse. In at number 2 is the Black Orlov Diamond. The Black Orlov Diamond, also known as the Eye of Brahma, has a history steeped in tales of misfortune. Its origins trace back to India, where it was believed to be part of a larger diamond known as the Eye of Brahma, set in a sacred idol in a temple. Legend has it that a monk, in defiance of the sacred setting, stole the diamond from the idol, leading to a series of tragedies and untimely deaths. The diamond was eventually cut into 3 pieces to dispel the curse. One of these pieces became the Black Orlov, named after its owner, Princess Nadia Vyagin Orlov. A series of misfortunes are said to have befallen its subsequent owners. Tales of people taking their own lives, financial ruin, and tragic deaths circulated. I think what I've learned from this list is that diamonds are bad, okay? Finally, though, we have the cursed Assyrian stele. This is an ancient artifact that was split into 2 pieces. One piece was found in 1879 in Syria and now sits in the British Museum. The other went to the Bonhams auction house in London. The British Museum had an opportunity to purchase the other half in 2014, but they decided against it. This lower half, which was up at auction, didn't have a whole lot of information behind it. It wasn't said how the stele left Syria, just that it had been gifted from father to son in the 1960s. So this led to some speculation that the artifact may have been taken illegally from its home country. I wonder if that's true. There's also a curse inscribed onto the stele, which may have also been a factor in not wanting to unite the two halves. The inscription, translated to English, reads, "Whoever discards this image from the presence of Salmanu puts it into another place, whether he throws it into water or covers it with earth or brings and places it into a taboo house where it is inaccessible. May the god Salmanu, the great lord, overthrow his sovereignty. May his name and his seed disappear in the land. May he live in a contingent together with the slave woman of his land." A doll that changed into a horrifying ghoulish nightmare, almost as if it actually aged. A teddy bear that sent a man to the hospital, a lifelike mannequin that may be more than just an eerily realistic sculpture. These are cursed dolls that even Ed and Lorraine Warren would have been terrified of. This first story was making its rounds on the internet for a while, the doll that aged. So it all started with a regular baby girl doll that a young girl played with every day, but as time passed and the girl grew up, she played with the doll less and less, until eventually it was tucked away in the attic and forgotten about for over a decade. Sounds like the beginning of like Toy Story, but this is kind of like the horror version. So fast forward to when the parents decide to clear out the attic, they're looking for the old doll, but when they finally find it, they're completely shocked and horrified to find that the doll, which had been left untouched for years, now looked like this. Just kind of different from how they remembered it. I mean, in what world would anyone ever purchase something as horrific looking as that for their young daughter? Unless, you know, you're me, because that's a reaction I would just love to see on Christmas morning. The once sweet baby doll now had this ghoulish, shriveled appearance. I mean, it looks worse than the Crypt Keeper. Horrified, the parents quickly got rid of the doll. They didn't burn it in a fire like you'd probably expect though. Instead, they took the time to actually sell this monstrosity. And managed to. Next we have mourning dolls, and that's not like early mourning, I mean the death kind of mourning. Mourning dolls were a thing in the Victorian era, and back in those days life was incredibly tough, especially with the rampant diseases that led to high mortality rates a lot of the time in younger people. To cope with the loss of young loved ones, some families created these unique dolls known as Victorian mourning dolls. These were actually made for the parents, keepsakes designed to honor and remember their deceased daughters or sons. They were usually made from materials like wax or porcelain and dressed in black clothing to symbolize mourning and death. And even more depressing, they were handcrafted to look just like the youngsters who just croaked, with great attention to detail, and they'd usually put them on display where they used to play. Good lord. I get the idea of creating this tangible thing that's meant to keep their spirit alive, I guess, but man, that is morbid. To say that some of these things must have been cursed would be an understatement. Oh, mannequins, don't they just make you want to leave the store immediately? A lot of the time they're just faceless figures now, but they used to be a lot creepier when they were made to look more like people, with like eyes and noses and lips. Well, no mannequin hits that unsettling uncanny valley thing more than La Pascualita, an eerie mannequin that's become a must-see attraction in Mexico. This mannequin is known for its very lifelike appearance, and some people believe it might be more than just a display piece. The story goes that La Pascualita was modeled after the daughter of the bridal shop's original owner. She tragically died on her wedding day after being bitten by a poisonous insect. Heartbroken, the mother commissioned the mannequin in her likeness as a way to remember her. But there's always been this rumor or urban legend that La Pascualita isn't a mannequin at all, but a preserved corpse. Some claim they've seen her move or even heard her whisper. Plus, the thing is just so eerily lifelike, especially for a mannequin. I mean, just look at that hand. Ugh. This story went viral when a TikToker named Jessie V did a video on it, but the ordeal had actually been filmed for TV before that. So this is the story of Mr. Ted, a haunted teddy bear that sent a man to the hospital. Mr. Ted once belonged to a psychic medium named Debbie Davis who claimed that the bear had some unsettling vibes. According to her, Mr. Ted had been known to cause nausea in people and even make growling sounds. So, you know, what do you do with a growling bear that makes you vomit? Well, you take it to a haunted castle, of course, because why not? Bolsover Castle is famous for being one of the most haunted castles in England. A team of 3 volunteers then agreed to spend the night in the castle with Mr. Ted just to see if there was any truth to the story. They set up their experiment with Mr. Ted sitting on a chair next to them as they tried to get some sleep. Paranormal expert Joe Lockwood was on hand, observing from a nearby room. Well, around 3 a.m., the team lost connection with a camera, and during this weird period, one of the producers working on the TV experiment suddenly fell ill and had to go to the hospital. After this, the bear was buried in a secret location about 30 miles from its owner's home in Manchester. Fingers crossed it doesn't crawl out of its grave to growl and upset any other innocent stomachs ever again. Okiku is a haunted doll from Japan with a really tragic backstory. In 1918, a young man named Daikichi Suzuki bought a doll for his young sister, Okiku. She fell in love with it right away and took it everywhere she went. But sadly, Okiku caught the yellow fever and died just a year later, still clutching the doll in her arms. Her family built an altar for her and placed the doll there to honor her memory. But people started noticing that the doll's hair, which had been neatly styled, seemed to grow. They saw split ends and longer strands, and along with this, the family experienced odd happenings in their home. There'd be flickering lights, loud bangs, and whispers, especially around significant dates, like Okiku's birthday, or the anniversary of her death. In 1938, the family moved, but decided to leave the doll behind, feeling it belonged near their daughter's resting place. They gave it to a local temple where it remains to this day, and yes, the hair supposedly continues to grow. Looking at this puppet, would you ever think twice about sleeping in the same room with it? It looks pretty innocuous, right? Well, according to paranormal investigator Jane Harris from Stourbridge, West Midlands, that wouldn't be advised. She'd acquired the doll from a guy named John who claimed that the wooden puppet tried to choke him in the middle of the night. So Harris decided to keep a camera on the thing throughout the night to try and see if it got up to any mischief. Well, one night, it did. On camera, she captured the string with the cross attached, which operates the puppet, slowly moving upright on its own before falling back down in the case. Harris stated, "I've never had anything as exciting as this. I've caught pictures of mists, orbs, and shadows, but nothing as physical as this video evidence." The previous owner, John, had grown up with the puppet, which belonged to his father. He said he never liked it either, that it always gave him the creeps, and that whenever friends came to visit, they'd never want to get near it. And then, of course, there's the choking incident. After John's father had died, he was clearing out his belongings, but ended up keeping the puppet, which he left on the drawer by his bed. And that very night, the incident occurred. He said, quote, "I was wide awake in bed and thought I saw a shadow move from one side of the window to the other, and worried something was trying to scare us. Then, without warning, my throat suddenly went really tight. I've never had anyone's hands around my throat before, so it was really scary. I tried to wake my wife, but it took her ages to come around. When she did, I remember looking straight at the puppet sitting on the drawer near our bed and realizing it was him." We've all heard of Robert the Doll. Well, how about a spooky first-hand account? This story comes from Reddit user Sublime Sloth, who posted this story along with a photo. They wrote, "Long story short, friend's sister went to the Robert the Doll exhibit in Key West and didn't believe the curse. Apparently flicked it off and took a photo without asking permission. Started having terrible luck. Photos messed up, eerie feelings of being watched, etc. This photo was taken after a conversation talking about how she felt that Robert was following her and had something to do with her string of bad luck. Someone jokingly took the photo after invoking Robert's name to see what would happen. 100% real and not photoshopped. She immediately wrote a letter apologizing to the doll the next day. Nightmare fuel. Had this photo for years and show it every time the topic of ghosts comes up." I don't know, what do you guys think of this one? Let me know in the comments. Did you get super sick of the movie Frozen 11 years back? God, that was over a decade ago. Well, at least you didn't have to go through what this next family did. In 2013, the Bedonia family in Houston brought an Elsa doll from the movie Frozen for their young daughter. Now, at first, everything was normal. The doll sang and said cute phrases from the movie just like it was supposed to, but then things started getting weird. According to Emily Bedonia, the doll started doing stuff like switching between English and Spanish, and for the next 6 years, the doll never once needed new batteries. Not that it even needed batteries at all, because apparently it would even say things when it was supposed to be off. So naturally the family decided they'd had enough of Elsa and her weird antics, so they decided to let it go Good old 11-year-old joke. Anyway, they threw it in the trash, but none of this is the creepy part. A few weeks later, they found Elsa in their basement. They tried to get rid of it again, this time by putting it deep at the bottom of the trash bin right before the garbage was collected. Then they took a short trip out of town, thinking the doll was finally gone, but when they got back, Elsa was sitting in the backyard, like she'd never left. Now you'd think someone was just messing with them, but Emily pointed out that the doll had this distinctive mark from their daughter. The doll sitting in the backyard had that very same mark. This is Harold, full name Harold the Haunted Doll. And it's pretty easy to see why. I'd have some serious questions for whatever youngster would ever want to spend time playing with this thing. In 2003, a young man came across Harold at a flea market and felt this immediate urge to buy him for some reason. It was worn and shabby, but the man bargained with the seller and eventually paid $20 for it. But before he could leave, the old man selling the doll stopped him and insisted he hear the doll's eerie backstory. The man revealed that Harold was a gift he'd given to his own son, who tragically died shortly after receiving it. After his son's death, the old man kept Harold in his room, and that's when strange things began to happen. He would hear singing and laughter coming from the room when no one else was around. Frustrated and scared by the constant disturbances, the old man tried to burn the doll, but it wouldn't catch fire. The redditor decided to take the doll home anyway, and things got weird almost immediately. He started experiencing severe migraines, something he had never dealt with before. And a couple days later, his cat died. He began hearing the same voices and laughter that the old man had described as well. But even with all this happening, he decided to keep Harold, but he stuffed him in a suitcase, out of sight, out of mind. And I guess he couldn't burn it, he already knew. But I would have definitely not kept it in a suitcase. I would have driven it out of town and left it in the woods. The Swamp Dolls. That sounds like a great name for a band, but you know, that's not where I'm going with this thing. So in 2014, police in Alabama stumble on a very odd scene in Bear Creek Swamp. They find 21 dolls, most of them antique porcelain, all stuck on bamboo stakes and standing upright in the middle of the swamp. The dolls were discovered on land owned by a timber company, but when the police tried to reach out to the company to get some answers, they never got a response. The police also tried to track down who put the dolls there, but they came up empty-handed. Now, this wouldn't be all that eerie if Bear Creek Swamp didn't already have somewhat of a spooky reputation. People who visit the swamp have reported hearing disembodied voices, seeing strange orbs, and even spotted unidentified creatures. There's also an old legend that says the swamp is haunted by a grieving mother who's endlessly searching for her lost daughter. But believe in ghosts or not, it's hard to deny that finding a bunch of old dolls on stakes in a swamp is kind of unsettling. I do have to wonder what's going on in that town though, because I feel like if I was a cop and I was called to a scene where there were dolls on stakes, I'd be like, I think there's something else probably better I could be doing with my time. Maybe that's just me though.
Is James Dean's car. When actor James Dean introduced himself to British actor Alec Guinness during an encounter in Hollywood, he asked him to take a look at his car. Alec thought the car appeared sinister and told Dean, "If you get in that car, you'll be found dead in it by this time next week." Now this happened on September 23rd, 1955, 7 days before James's death, which is just creepy. On September 30th, James and his mechanic set off for a car race when another car driven from the opposite direction crossed into James's lane without seeing him. They crashed and James was pronounced dead on arrival to a local hospital. The mechanic who was with him died in a road accident in 1981 in Germany after surviving several attempts of trying to end his life. Now after the accident, a famous car enthusiast, George Barris, bought the wreck, which slipped off its trailer and broke a mechanic's leg. George sold some parts to two guys who raced each other, and one died instantly and the other was injured. George later sold 2 tires, which blew up simultaneously, causing the buyer's automobile to go off the road. Later, one thief tried to steal the steering wheel and his arm was ripped open. After that, another man was injured while trying to steal the blood-stained front seat. Now, after lending the rest of the wrecked car to a highway safety exhibit, the garage storing the car went up in flames, destroying everything, well, except the car itself. Now, the second display at a high school ended when the car fell, breaking a student's hip. While being transported, the truck containing the vehicle lost control, causing the driver to fall out and be crushed by the Porsche after it fell off the back. In 1960, when being returned to George Barris in LA, the car mysteriously vanished and has not been seen since. And I say, good riddance. Number 9. The Destiny Ring. Rudolph Valentino was one of the most famous actors of the silent film era, but he tragically died at 31 years old. Some years previously, Valentino had bought a ring from a California jeweler, and the shopkeeper never wanted to sell the ring. It's cursed, he said. It's called the Destiny Ring, but this didn't stop Rudolph. This curse would be proven to be true, as it all started with the miserable flop of the film Young Raja, and by the time he made The Son of the Psyche in 1926, he died wearing the ring. Pola Najiri, Valentino's lover, received the ring upon his death, and she fell ill and gave the ring to someone else. Most of the ring's subsequent owners died in strange ways, and today it's locked up in a bank vault where no one can touch it. Now, if someone doesn't want to sell you something because it's cursed, here's a tip: don't buy it. Number 8. The Conjure Chest. The Conjure Chest is a chest of drawers who has taken the lives of about 16 people. As the story goes, an enslaved man named Remus custom made the item for his enslaver, Jeremiah Graham, in Kentucky circa 1830. Jeremiah, displeased with Remus's work, beat him to death. Now, in retaliation, Remus's friends then cursed the chest by scattering dried owl blood in its drawers. Now, the Grahams continued to use the chest and passed it down their family for 140 years, and death or injury came to anyone who used it. In the mid-20th century, Virginia Carey Hudson Cleveland had 2 of her offspring die, and her husband died. A neighbor also died after an accident involving a weapon, and all had used the chest. So Virginia enlisted the help of her maid Sally to undo the curse. They followed steps that included procuring a dead owl and boiling willow leaves. Sally said that if she or Virginia then died, it would prove that the curse had broken, and months later, Sally did die. Then when Virginia's daughter inherited the chest, she opted to not use it, which is why she's the smartest person in that family. In 2020, the conjured chest remains on display in the Kentucky Historical Society, with its drawers remaining empty. Number 7. Thomas Busby's chair. Popularly known as Busby's stoop chair, this wooden chair is cursed by the spirit of Thomas Busby, who was known to end the lives of many people. In 1702, before being put to death for his crimes, he requested to have a meal in his favorite local pub. When he finished eating, he stood and said, "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit on my chair," and ever since then, 63 people who dared to sit on the chair met untimely and terrifying deaths. Yes, you heard that right. 63. World War II pilots who took turns in the chair perished during battle. A delivery man died in a car crash right after trying out the chair in the 1970s, and so on. In 1978, the pub's landlord gave the chair to the Thirsk Museum, along with strict instructions for it to be suspended above the floor to make sure no one sat in it again. Number 6. Mirror at Myrtle's Plantation. A historic home and former plantation, the Myrtle's Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana, is rumored to be on top of an ancient Tunica Indian burial ground, which is just one reason why it's haunted. It is home of at least 12 ghosts, and it's often reported that 10 people had their lives ended in the house. Now, there are many creepy legends surrounding this property, and the tale of the cursed mirror is one of the most famous. According to legend, the former owner of the house, Sarah Woodruff, and her 2 daughters were poisoned by their slave and are trapped inside the mirror. Visitors of the house report seeing handprints, strange marks, and even figures dressed in old-fashioned clothes lurking in the mirror. Workers say they try to clean off the handprints, but they always reappear in the same spot too. Number 5. the Devil's Chair. Ghost Adventure star Zach Baggan purchased the Devil's Chair to be on display in his museum, but he had been forced to shut down his haunted rocking chair exhibit. Many strange things started happening with it as Zach and a friend noticed the door by the chair's room slowly creak open all by itself. Zach also says a light focused on the chair went out when a power cord was mysteriously yanked out of the wall. 2 hours later, he says a woman collapsed, began bawling, and asked, "Why is this happening to me?" Shortly thereafter, she fell unconscious, according to Zach, who adds that the woman was upstairs, directly above this rocking chair exhibit. Later, Zach said 5 of his tour guides throughout the museum started crying uncontrollably. After just a few tours on opening night, the stress was too much for Zach, and it forced him to shut it down altogether for the night. Now, for now, Zach says the haunted rocking chair exhibit is closed until further notice. Number 4. Ruby. Ruby is a porcelain doll with a liking for moving around from place to place. Currently residing with the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult, she comes from mysterious origins. Her previous owner said that she had originally belonged to a little girl in the family who died while holding the toy. According to the family that owned the doll, it possessed some unsettling characteristics. For one thing, it seemed to be able to move around a room by itself and was also known to emit eerie, unearthly sounds. Some family members believe that Ruby possessed the unique ability to make anyone in her immediate proximity fall suddenly ill with headaches, allergies, exhaustion, and most often, extreme nausea. Shortly after her arrival, the curators began to notice that visitors to the museum would be drawn to hold the doll and rock her back and forth. While they never became ill, many found themselves overwhelmed with maternal feelings and often report experiencing overwhelming feelings of sorrow radiating from Ruby. Number 3. Baker's wedding dress. In 1854, while visiting her father's company, Anna Baker met and fell in love with one of the steelworkers. Anna kept the romance a secret from her family as she knew her father would prohibit her relationship with one of his employees. Now, this went on for 2 years, and it wasn't long after that that Anna's boyfriend proposed, and she happily accepted. Anna picked out a beautiful wedding dress, and the two made plans to marry, but her father found out about the secret relationship and immediately fired Anna's love, threatening him with death if he ever returned. Now, Anna's heart broke and she fell into a deep depression. The only thing she had was the wedding dress. Now, their house was turned into a museum with the dress displayed, and most of the paranormal activity in the home appears to be centered around this dress. Visitors have witnessed the glass case move while they were in the room, appearing as if someone was trying to get to the dress. Others have claimed to see the dress move or have caught glimpses of what appear to be the dress out of its case and floating around. In the early 2000s, the dress was removed from display after 30 years due to deterioration from direct sunlight and air, but I think we all know that it was removed due to being too haunted. Number 2. Pompeii objects. Recently, a woman reportedly sent a package to Italy, supposedly containing items that she had taken from the historical site of Pompeii, along with a note of an apology. In the letter, the woman claims that she has been cursed with bad luck as a result of her actions. According to the park, however, this is far from the first incidents of it happening, and tourists from all over the world have been sending items back for many years, which they believe have brought them misfortune. Archaeological officer of Pompeii, Dr. Luana Tonilo, said that the park has received approximately 200 returns over the last decade, many of which include letters telling the story of why and when items such as white mosaic tiles, ceramic pieces, rocks and pebbles, and fragments of the architecture were taken. Some even outline why they are choosing to return the items, citing bad luck. Some letters tell us of sad events that occurred after stealing the artifacts in Pompeii, such as broken legs and ankles. Others have heard of this curse, so they prefer to return these artifacts as a precaution before something bad can happen to them, Dr. Toniolo said. So hey, if you've ever stolen anything from here, I suggest returning it if you want to get rid of your bad luck. And coming at number 1 is the Bassano vase. Legend has it that this silver vase made in the 15th century was given to a bride on the evening of her wedding near Naples, Italy. Sadly, she never made it to the altar as her life was ended that very night with the vase in her hand. From there, the vase was passed down her family line, but anyone who took possession of it is said to have passed away soon thereafter, so the family eventually made the decision to hide the vase. Now, the vase was gone for a while, but popped back up in 1988, supposedly accompanied by a note that read, "Beware, this vase brings death." However, when the Bassano vase was auctioned off for about $2,250, the note had been excluded from the item description. The pharmacist who bought it died within 3 months, and more deaths of the new owners followed, until finally the curse seemed to go dormant when a desperate family demanded the police take the vase away, and it has not been seen since. Honestly, I hope it never pops up again.
Archaeologists have a really cool job, but also quite a daunting one. With all the time human beings have been on this earth, most of those years being violent and tumultuous, there are a good number of objects that have a pretty dark history behind them. So let's talk about them. We're gonna start off the list with Mummy Juanita. If there's anything in the world that is likely cursed, it's gotta be mummies. And I don't even care if curses are real. Mummies, they're creepy as hell anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So back in 1995, on a casual day of mummy hunting, as one does, anthropologist Johann Reinhardt and his gang stumbled upon something pretty mind-blowing on Mount Ampato in the Andes Mountains of Peru. Enter Mummy Juanita, also known as the Ice Maiden or Lady of Ampato. Juanita was a teenage Inca girl making her way to about 14 years old before meeting her unfortunate end. The crazy part was that this discovery was accidental. Reinhardt and his crew were on a mission to find another Inca mummy when, whoopsie daisy, they stumbled upon Juanita in a crevice at a whopping 20,600 feet above sea level. Quite the surprise. She was wrapped up in layers of vibrant textiles, lying there with all kinds of goodies around her, ceramics, metals, food, even tiny statues. All of these extra items she was adorned with made it pretty likely that she had been sacrificed, likely to the gods. Next on the list is the Screaming Mummy. Yeah, if you thought your regular old mummy was unsettling, how about one who died in pain and terror with a face eternally stuck in a scream? That is the Screaming Mummy, also known as Man-E. This mummy was discovered in 1886 by Gaston Maspero, the head of the Egyptian Antiques Service. Man-E didn't seem to go through your typical mummification ritual. For one, his internal organs hadn't been removed, and his hands and feet were bound. So that combined with his terrified expression meant it was pretty likely this guy had been buried alive, which is absolutely horrifying. That's one of my worst fears. At the very least though, he'd been in pain when he died. So is this mummy cursed? Let's just say I'd be far more surprised to discover that it wasn't. Next we have a story about a disturbing music box. This story was shared to Reddit by Majestic Park, who talked about a music box her ex-boyfriend had that was passed down to him from his grandmother after she passed away. Majestic Park talked about how off the thing made them feel. They couldn't even play the thing and tried to stay away from it as much as possible. It just had a bad vibe about it. They went on to write, "The boyfriend moved out of the house, and when he left, I put all the things he left behind out in the storeroom, including the music box. I had hell after that. I had health problems. Both of my dogs got cancer and had to be put down. My car constantly broke down. My mother took ill and died. A mentally ill neighbor started stalking and harassing me, and I was constantly at odds with my friends and coworkers. Plus, I started having money problems. Finally, I decided to move and get rid of all the old boyfriend's things. I threw that effing music box in the back of my pickup with all the other stuff and hauled it to the dump. I have no idea if it had anything to do with getting rid of the music box. My life started to even out and got better. I was able to get a new car. I got another boyfriend, I bought a house, and my troubles with my friends and coworkers started to subside. The crazy neighbor was sent to a treatment hospital, and a friend gave me a wonderful dog. I had a good run of about 10 years before anything else bad happened to me." Next on the list is the cursed spear point. So another Redditor talked about an artifact that may have been responsible for some bad stuff as soon as they found it. User Grok23 wrote, "I found a spear point in a really old medicine wheel here in Wyoming. I took it and instantly got bad vibes. A lot of creepy happened until I returned it. Don't mess with native sacred sites." And that's where the post ends. So then someone else asked them what creepy stuff happened. So Grok23 continued with, "On the way home, my motorcycle's tire blew up and threw me off, and I almost stabbed myself on the spearhead. Obsidian, so pretty sharp. That night, I kept hearing banging noises on my wall and had sleep paralysis where I saw some shadow figures. The next day, I apologized and placed it back in the medicine wheel, which looked like this." And he attached this image here. Yeah, that is actually a lot of stuff to happen in a very short span of time. I'd be getting rid of that thing too. We're back to mummies again, this time with what has been dubbed the Scottish Frankenstein mummies. So in 2001, archaeologists were doing a dig in a Bronze Age settlement in Scotland where they dug up a pair of 3,000-year-old skeletons. One was male, the other was female. They'd fully decomposed at this point and were just skeletons, but the team performed tests on the bones and discovered that they had been intentionally preserved initially. This was pretty cool on its own because intentional mummification in Europe was rare. But the creepy part comes next. Turned out that each of these skeletons were cobbled together like Frankenstein-style creations. The male skeleton had parts belonging to 3 different men: a torso from one, a skull and neck from another, and a lower jaw from some other guy. And the female actually had a male skull, a female torso, and the arm of somebody else. Until this day, researchers don't know why these bones were pieced together like that. Next, we have the knife-handed skeleton. All right, I'm not actually sure if this next thing is cursed, but it's so damn cool, I couldn't help but throw it on the list. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it brought some bad luck. What did folks in the medieval times do when they had a limb lobbed off in battle? Well, most of them just died. Some of you may be shocked by this, but folks back then didn't have quite the same quality of medical care that we do now. Apparently people wouldn't always die though after having their hand detached from their arm with the help of a battle axe. In the early 90s, Italian archaeologists dug up a male skeleton with a missing right forearm, and to compensate, he attached a knife to his forearm with some sort of medieval style prosthesis, likely made of buckles and straps. You see, the teeth on the right side of his mouth were super worn down, meaning he was most likely tightening the prosthesis with his teeth, you know, kind of like going like that. Now, of course, people are sometimes born missing limbs, but that was not the case here. Researchers made a 3D model of his right arm with a CT scan and discovered that there had been severe blunt force trauma to his forearm. So this guy had his forearm removed, survived the procedure in a time where medical care was a total joke, and then attached a blade to his arm to keep fighting another day. Someone needs to make a movie about this guy. Next on the list, we have the cursed stela. This is an ancient artifact that comes in 2 parts. So back in 1879, one half was in Syria, but today it sits in the British Museum. The other half went on a different adventure, landing at the Bonhams auction house in London. Now, the British Museum had a shot at reuniting these 2 long-lost halves in 2014, but they decided against it. And why was that? Well, there were 2 reasons. For one, it was a bit of a mystery as to how the lower half, up for grabs at the auction, left Syria. All we know is that it supposedly passed from father to son in the 60s. Cue the suspicious side-eye and conspiracy theories about it being swiped from its home country. And secondly, there's the curse. The inscription on the artifact, when translated to English, is a warning that reads, "Whoever discards this image from the presence of Salmanu puts it into another place, whether he throws it into water or covers it with earth or brings and places it into a taboo house where it is inaccessible. May the god Salmanu, the great lord, overthrow his sovereignty. May his name and his seed disappear into the land. May he live in a contingent together with the slave woman of his land." So housing it in a British museum certainly counts as putting it into another place. So they opted not to purchase the second half, perhaps partly in fear of angering Salmanu even further. The Terracotta Army. In 1974, a group of farmers in China stumbled on something big while digging a well. They found this massive pit filled with thousands of life-size clay soldiers, horses, and chariots. These clay soldiers were made over 2,000 years ago to guard the tomb of China's first emperor. The emperor wanted an army to follow him into the afterlife, so his followers made this incredible army out of clay, and each soldier was unique, with different faces, hairstyles, and even uniforms. It's incredibly impressive to look at, even just in pictures. But back to the curse part, some people claim that disturbing the emperor's tomb, which probably includes finding and digging up the Terracotta Army, brings bad luck. And the farmers who discovered it in 74 had a pretty tough time afterward. First off, their village got moved because of all the fuss about the discovery, and then a bunch of the farmers faced hardships like illness and financial troubles. Now we move on to a cursed mirror known as the Dark Mirror. It's said that this scrying mirror, which is now housed in the Traveling Museum of Paranormal and Occult, shows disturbing visions when you gaze into it. The most common thing people see is their own corpse staring right back at them. People have also reported seeing themselves rapidly aged. Some have seen their reflection move on its own, like winking or smiling at them. Or sometimes people's reflection will just vanish altogether. A man donated the mirror to the museum after buying it at a Columbus area psychic fair. As soon as he took the thing home, he started experiencing some disturbing stuff, i.e., every time he looked at the mirror, things just looked off, almost like the mirror was conjuring up his deepest, darkest fears and taunting him with them. Suffice to say, he didn't want the thing in his house anymore. Finally, though, we have the Hope Diamond. So this blue gem is currently housed at the National Museum of Natural History in DC, but its journey has been pretty dramatic, to say the least. Legend has it that this diamond was taken from an Indian idol. After that, anyone who had their hands on the thing was in for a wild ride of misfortune and tragedy. Like King Louis XIV and Marie Antoinette, two big names in history who each had their fair share of drama and both possessed the Hope Diamond at one point in their lives. In 1839, a guy named Henry Thomas Hope dropped a large sum of money on the diamond, slapped his name on it, and then died. Then his family sold the gem to settle some gambling debts. After that comes jeweler Wilhelm Falls. He snags the diamond, and then his very own son takes him out. In the early 1900s, Evelyn Walsh McLean took the stage. Her kids kicked the bucket prematurely, then her husband left her, and he ended up taking his life not long afterward.